So, first of all, please take a seat, dear colleagues, dear friends. First of all, welcome to the Hague, to the Hague. And of course, thank you to the Dutch delegation. Thank you, Farah, and the whole team for inviting us. And I think that this will be a very successful annual session, and I would like to ask you an applause for the Dutch delegation and for the start of this session. And let me also use the opportunity to welcome those of you participating in the meeting of the Standing Committee for the first time. And before we begin, please note that this meeting is being recorded. And to request the floor, please simply raise your hand on nameplate. And should any delegation wish to raise an issue on the point 8, any other business, please inform the International Secretariat at the podium in advance. And note that under point 5.1, the Standing Committee will be asked to approve proposed one amendment to the rules of procedure to list Turpa among our observers. I know already that there is no consensus, but I think it's important that we have the debate. And this decision is to be taken by consensus -1. And let me also clarify that no additional amendments have been tabled. And please finally note that our meeting should conclude by 12:30, 12:30. I would like to ask you to adopt first the agenda for this meeting, which has been circulating. The latest draft added point 5.3, a change of views on governance and oversight framework upon the suggestion of Tobias Winkler. I thank you, Tobias, for your suggestion. And I would like to ask you if there is any objection to adopt the agenda. So the agenda is adopted. Thank you. And before we proceed, I wish to flag one point regarding our work as this annual session. The topic of election observation is of considerable importance and touches one question that deserves to be broadest possible engagement for our membership. For that reason, I have decided that discussions on this matter will take place in plenary on 8th July, rather than being confined to the Standing Committee. This will allow for a wider and more plural debate with the full participation of all delegations. I trust colleagues will take note of this and come prepared to engage on Wednesday. But of course, if you want to raise any concern about election observation, this is also the place. And let me talk a little bit about practical and procedural aspects of this annual session. The annual session's practical and procedural information, as well as the documentation, explain in detail the process of selecting assembly and committee officers, the most important thing, being elected, have been widely circulated in advance of this meeting. And let me just highlight a few, but very important points. With regard to elections, and the deadline for nominations of assembly officers is 9:30 a.m. on Monday, 6 July. Monday, 6 July, 9:30 a.m. Early voting for members who have an unavoidable obligation to leave the annual session before Wednesday will take place in the table office, meeting room South America, between 12 a.m. and 6 o'clock p.m. on Monday, 6 July, and between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. on Tuesday, 7 July. Members must request early voting in writing before 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, 7 July. Don't forget, please. You have any requests, please come to the Secretariat. The elections will be held on the morning of Wednesday, 8 July, between 8:30 and 10:30 a.m., of course. I have appointed Luis Grasa from Portugal, Jefrosina Pejovic, Montenegro, and Natalia Moratti Blanc from Monaco as tellers. And to facilitate the process of electing committee officers, the general committees will be invited to set a nomination deadline on Monday, 6 July at 6 p.m. This will be confirmed by each general committee at their first meeting. These elections will take place during the last meeting of the general committees. With regard to the list of speakers, in line with Rule 27.2, members wishing to speak in debates should sign up no later than 1 hour before the announced time of the opening of the sitting. I stress this in particular for the debates in plenary on 7 and July 8th, for which we will have strict time constraints. Please also register in advance to ask questions to the OCE chairperson in office this afternoon. Don't forget, this afternoon, questions to the Swiss chairperson in office and to the OCE Secretary General on July 8th. And sharing the text of your question in advance would greatly facilitate a comprehensively reply. Let me also announce that Baroness Winterthur will be chairing the draft committee in charge of preparing the Hague Declaration. And thank you, Baroness, for having accepted. And let me now take a moment to explain that the Standing Committee will now be asked to take several technical decisions. You will first be asked to approve the list of registered participants. This is a technical matter only, to validate signatures for amendments and supplementary items. And the Standing Committee will then be asked to approve membership of the general committees. Again, this is a technical matter to ensure compliance with our rules of procedure. And after this, the Standing Committee will be asked to place supplementary items on the agenda of the annual session and to confirm their placement for consideration by the plenary or general committee. And please note that according to our rules of procedure, the inclusion of supplementary items on the agenda of the annual session requires a 2/3 majority. Their allocation to a committee or the plenary requires a simple majority. All other decisions will require, of course, consensus -1. And following these technical matters, the Standing Committee will be asked to approve the budget. We have the Treasurer with us here, and in addition, an amendment to the rules of procedure has been tabled. This will need to be approved by consensus -1. Are there any questions before we proceed? So the International Secretariat has distributed the preliminary list of participants, and the International Secretariat has been notified about members of the Assembly who had registered for the meeting but who are unable to attend due to unavoidable obligations. Their names do not appear on the list, but if the head of delegation has appropriately informed us, in accordance with Rule 24.2, their signatures remain valid. Of course, the International Secretariat can provide the names to any member who wishes. For the purposes of validation of signatures, the Standing Committee approved the list. I understand that we approved the list. So the list is approved. So we move here. Then in accordance with Rule 36.2, membership of the general committees shall be ratified by the Standing Committee on the Bureau. All delegations have been reminded of the request of the Standing Committee that the distribution of members between the 3 general committees should be as equal as possible. The Secretary General has indicated to me that these rules have been observed and that accordingly the table office is distributing voting cards for the 3 committees as equally as possible to comply with this. I imagine that you all agree on that. Any objection? So and then as supplementary items are concerned, in accordance with Rule 21.1, the agenda of the annual session may be supplemented by an item or a motion or any matter with the competence of the OCE, which does not relate directly to subjects proposed by the general rapporteurs to the 3 committees. The International Secretariat has received 15 supplementary items with sufficient support for consideration during the annual session. The list of supplementary items has been circulated, as you know, and these supplementary items now require a 2/3 majority to be included on the agenda of the annual session. We will proceed as follows. I will first ask if anyone opposes the inclusion of all supplementary items on the agenda of the annual session. If so, I will ask which supplementary items a separate vote is requested for. If no separate vote is requested for a supplementary item, I will deem it to have been agreed to. Does the Standing Committee approve all supplementary items? I think Tobias Winkler wants to have the floor. Tobias.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, I would propose to have a separate vote on supplementary item number 14.
Okay. Okay, it's a supplementary item on Palestine, submitted by the delegation of Ireland. So anybody else wants to raise or wants to make any comment? It's about, no, okay. Our colleague from Italy, Eugenio.
Grazie Presidente. Anch'io sono d'accordo sul fatto di chiedere un voto separato per questo supplementary item, grazie. Per cui sono fermamente contrario.
I would like to give the floor to the Turkish colleagues.
Evet, tabii bu ek karar tasarılarıyla alakalı herhangi biriyle alakalı ayrı bir oylama yapıldığı takdirde ben her biri için ayrı ayrı bir oylama yapmak lazım geldiğini ama verilen tek bir ek karar tasarısıyla alakalı tek bir oylama yapılmasının doğru olmadığını düşünüyorum. Mümkünse eğer illa Filistin'le alakalı olan konuya ayrı bir oylama yapılması isteniyorsa bütün ek karar tasarılarıyla alakalı ayrı ayrı oylama yapılması lazım geldiğini yoksa tamamının tek bir oylama yapılmasının daha doğru olacağını düşünüyorum.
I think there are already many voices that requested a separate vote. I suggest, and I understand perfectly the request from Turkey, but I think in terms of procedure, we have to vote this point separately. As a president, I think it's always a good idea to have debates on all the issues, as a préalable, as the French say. But of course, I invite to have a vote. But I think that as a parliamentarians, it's fantastic to debate all the issues, even the issues that we don't like to discuss. So let's proceed for a separate vote on this item. So just to confirm that, that I don't know if the delegation of Ireland would like to raise a point to explain this issue, of course.
Thanks, Mr. President. This, like all delegations to the OSCE, the Irish delegation consists of both government, independent and opposition representatives. This motion is in the name of one of the independent members of our opposition, of our delegation. Obviously, we support it. There are elements in it that, as a government representative, I may not have placed as much emphasis on, but I do think it's always useful, as you said, for these matters to be discussed. It's a matter that appears on our television screens every day. I don't think there's anything to be afraid of in the discussion around the issue. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Head of the delegation of the Irish team. And I think we have to vote separately this item as a requested delegation of Germany and the delegation of Italy. And I think as a procedure, we have to vote in favor of including this point in the debate or in favor of excluding this point of the debate. We are not discussing about even about the content of this. So the vote is about if we allow to discuss it. So I think we can, okay. So we will now proceed to vote on the inclusion of supplementary item. I think I can give you the floor after you want. But I think we should vote first. No? Okay, I give you the floor, no problem.
Thank you. I think this is important because we're not discussing the political content of the supplementary items here, so I want to focus on the formality here. And I believe that we should ask whether we should formally be dealing with issues that fall outside the OSCE region and beyond our mandate. Doing so would open the door to us in the future, debating every conflict around the world, including these that are entirely outside our region. Unfortunately, we already have more than enough conflicts in our own region that require our attention and efforts. Therefore, I think we need to vote on this, and I don't think that the supplementary item number 14 should be included on the agenda. Thank you.
So we can. So I would like to really proceed and to vote this item number 14. So I need to ask you who is in favor to vote on the inclusion of supplementary item number 14. So please raise your card. To include it in the debate. And you need to use the voting cards, okay? Because we have to count. We will now proceed to vote on the inclusion of supplementary item 14.
Raise your cards.
Who is in favor of including this item in the discussion? I'm the head of the Spanish delegation, so I vote for. Huh? I vote in favor as the head of the Spanish delegation.
Well, let's wait. Can you keep it up because it's very...
Please take.
Yeah, someone is lowered it. Okay, Bosnia is also
16, those
16.
actually 17 the president. He's voting for Spain.
Yeah.
17.
So we have 17 in favor. I would like to ask you, the ones who are against having this debate or having this supplementary item included in the debate. So the ones against it.
There's 2 votes for the US right there. It's only 1 vote for the US. Voting cards we need. Only the head of delegation can vote. There's 2 votes for the US. I have
16.
This delegation is voting twice.
And the US is because the US is 16.
So
Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So we have 19 against. And of course, I want to ask you if there's any abstention. We have 2 abstentions. So I imagine that this item will not be discussed. Yeah. Okay. Where? So.
Turkey wants to take the floor.
Yeah, just would like to say that this supplementary item has not been included in the agenda of the annual session. So, what I would like to ask you is that we don't reopen a debate. We don't reopen. I really would like to ask you that we don't reopen a debate. And I think we have the time during the standing committee, if you prefer. I would like to go, dear colleagues, I would like to move forward. No, this time I fully understand your thinking. Really, dear colleagues from Georgia, I would like.
He has an explicit request to have supplementary.
Mr. President, only 1 minute. Please, please, please.
Just I give you to the two delegations 30 seconds, but 30 seconds each. And I would like to proceed, and I would like to try to discuss all the rest of the items, if you don't mind.
Okay,
Please, 30 seconds.
Okay. Değerli Başkan, bu konuyla alakalı değil ama eğer her toplantıdan önce bu ve benzeri bir konuda, herhangi bir konuda konuşulsun veya konuşulmasın diye oylama yaptığımız takdirde bu komitenin amacına uygun hareket etmeyiz. Bundan sonra hiçbir konuyu tartışabilme şansımız olmaz. Yani konunun ne olduğunun hiç tartışılmadan öncesinden konuşulmasın diye oylamak bizim temsil olduğumuz demokratik değerlere uygun değil. Herhangi bir konuyla alakalı söylüyorum. Bu konu özelinde söylemiyorum. Yanlış yapıyoruz. Bu tutum doğru bir tutum değil. Bundan sonra hiçbir konu tartışılamaz. Baştan önüne geçerseniz engel olursunuz. Burada amaçlamış olduğumuz sonuç almak istediğimiz konuyu değerlendiremeyiz.
Thank you very much. I will give the floor to the Georgian delegation. I would like to proceed. I think the rest of the items will be discussed, and there is no need for more explanation. It was very clear. The colleague from Turkey.
Well, thank you very much. I have a different issue. I want to request a separate vote also on the supplementary item on Georgia, on the resolution on Georgia, and I can explain why if you allow me. There are factual misrepresentations in the text, but what worries me the most is that the text includes the following phrase: to withhold recognition to any future Georgian government when the elections are not deemed free and fair
Dear
by
colleague,
international
we don't need to enter in the content. You want to have a separate vote? We have a separate vote for this. That's all. Please.
Yeah, because
okay, we have a separate vote.
OSCE doesn't evaluate any.
Dear colleague, we have a separate vote on this, and that's all. Please. So, if we, as requested from the Georgian delegation, we have to have a vote on this supplementary item. So I will ask you all. It's point. It's number 8 resolution. I think it's sponsored by the US, right? So please, the ones in favor of including this supplementary item on the list to be debated, please raise your card. So we have 29 in favor. Who is against? Who is against? 4. 4 against, and any abstentions? 2, 3. So this point will be included on the list for discussion, and then at that point, dear colleague from Georgia, you will have the time to express your opposition to this supplementary item. So now I think the Belarusian wants to take the floor.
Господин председатель, просил бы провести отдельное голосование по включению пункта 11. По исключению пункта 11 из повестки дня. По исключению пункта 11 из повестки дня.
Okay, it's a point raised by the Swedish delegation, by Mr. Soder. So I would like to ask you who is in favor of including this point on the discussion and debate. Including, yes. Debating, yes. So we have 30 delegations in favor. I would like to ask you who is against, please. We have four delegations against. And any abstentions? We have 2. Okay, I think we can close this. All the items will be discussed except the point number 14 on the suffering of the population, which is really not far from here. But anyway, who cares about them? So we shall now decide on the allocation of the supplementary items. In accordance with Rule 21.1, the Standing Committee shall decide by a majority of the votes cast whether to refer a supplementary item to the competent committee or to submit it to the plenary. The proposed allocation of supplementary items made by the International Secretariat has been distributed. Are there any objections to the allocation of the supplementary items as proposed? Proposal made by the Secretariat. The Swedish delegation has... he took the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm a little bit confused about my supplementary item on number 11, that it's referred to the first committee. I would prefer to have it on the third committee, but I don't know the reasons why it's on the first committee. Thank you.
You want to explain why it's in the first? Andreas, do you want to explain, please?
Good morning. Thank you. Yeah, when looking at this, we look a little bit at the general content. It seemed appropriate. There's quite a strong security aspect to it. We do that, and also to ensure some sort of balance between the different committees in terms of just the volume of work. But if there's a request to move it, that's easy to put to a vote, if that's a preference. I think just please.
I would like to give the floor to the delegation of Ukraine, to Artur Gerasimov.
Dear Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, dear colleagues, all of you know WishNet Man now happening in Ukraine, and especially in the capital of Ukraine, Kyiv. Now we are speaking not about, for example, something we read, something we write, something we saw, but for example, 2 days ago was destroyed the apartment of my mother. 1 week ago was destroyed, fully destroyed the car of a member of our delegation, Irina Gerashchenko. A lot of people are killed, and because of that we are fully support that draft resolution, supplementary item about crimes against humanity and war crimes committed by the Russian Federation, the need to release prisoners of war and civilian detainers, and to ensure the return of Ukrainian children will be put into the plenary, because now this topic, if not extremely, but extremely important. But I want kindly ask Mr. President, you and the Secretariat, if it's possible, to start discuss this resolution in plenary today, if it's possible, to discuss and to support. Because, truly speaking, I think this topic must be raised from first words here during the plenary sessions of our Assembly. Thank you very much.
First of all, as you know, I think this Parliamentary Assembly always supports this fight that you have against the full-scale invasion. President Zelensky will address us today. We regret that the Rada chair could not attend. I know he wanted to attend. He was really committed. And of course, if there is any capacity to do so, we will try to include it. But it's a procedural issue, so we can make this consultation. If it's possible, we'll do it. So if you don't have any other point, I think we can allocate the items as we decided. And I think we should open the floor for questions and comments, but I think there was a lot of debate already. And I would like to have, I think I have to present my report now, if I can, or not.
Formally, you have to.
Yeah, that we formally agree that we move it, but I think we have two requests, one from the Armenian delegation. Anybody else before we close? And the Swedish as well. So Zargis.
Good morning. Mr. President, could you clarify in which committee, because as a chair of the third committee, I'm interested to learn whether it's going to be discussed in our committee or in the first committee.
Andreas.
Could you clarify it?
We need to vote. It's a 50% vote on.
We need to vote.
If he wants to have a vote.
We want to have a vote, of course. You want to have a vote?
I mean, are we going to say any objections to moving?
I just wanted to.
No, I want to know if you want to vote or not on this item. Yes. You suggest a vote for that.
Yeah, I would prefer to change it to the third committee, please.
So I prefer, if the delegation prefers to move it, I think there is no need for vote. We can just move it. If there is no objection, I think it's a simple matter. If you prefer to pass it to the, we try to allocate them, but for me there is no objection to shift one to another. So it will be discussed in the one requested, okay? So can I do my report now? So the items will be allocated as suggested. The supplementary items will be discussed by except one. And yeah. So I would like to read that this afternoon the plenary will consider supplementary items on Ukraine proposed by Vice President Mikita Potorayev, and I invite delegations to sign up speakers for these debates in advance of our plenary sitting this afternoon. We are now done with the technical decisions required to comply with our rules of procedure, and I really would like to share with you a little bit of comments as my report is concerned, and then I will give the floor to the Treasurer and the Secretary General to share with you the reports. And I think you could all have my written report. I'm not going to repeat a lot what I already shared with you, but I would like to make some comments, if you allow me. I would like to use these few minutes to share a broader reflection on what this first year has told me about our Assembly. So I think it's important not only to share it in written, but I would like to share with you how, let's say, how my experience has been after 1 year. And we often speak about the challenges faced in the OSCE area and beyond, war, growing geopolitical fragmentation, democratic backsliding, pressure on international law, and declining trust between states. Those challenges, you know, they are real, but they raise another question. And I think this is the fundamental questions for all of you. I have still 1 year mandate, but it's a question for all of you. what kind of parliamentary assembly is needed in a moment like this. I think this is the fundamental question, and I personally think that the relevance of the political relevance of this assembly is growing. It's not only because of our visibility, but because the current international environment has made parliamentary diplomacy more necessary, not less. And we see a growing participation in all our missions, in non-election observations, also in the willingness of hosting meetings, and also in the record of the participation in these annual sessions, autumn meetings and winter meetings, and also the increasing political engagement with our work. And I think it's not only recognition, but I think it's an indicator that participating states expect this assembly to be in the years ahead. What would they expect from us? And I think it tells us something important, that the demand for this institution is growing. And I have more and more requests to take part in events and participate in conferences, etc. So this is one thing, and I think also, I mentioned it before, we have had continued support for Ukraine, and I think it shows a clear responsibility of this organization. And it's not only a sign of solidarity, I think it's a defense of the principles that underpin the security of us all: sovereignty, territorial integrity, international law, and the right of every nation to determine its own future. So by standing with Ukraine, we are also defending the credibility of the rules and commitments that bind this organization together. And it reminds us why the institutions are capable to hold these principles through sustained political engagement, and are more important than ever. I think the political engagement today is extremely required, because when dialogue becomes more difficult, institutions capable of sustaining dialogue become more valuable. We were in Italy, we were meeting with the Pope, and this was reminded by the Holy Father, and also in the visit to Spain, he also reminded that dialogue is the most important thing today in this geopolitical situation. And also when international law is increasingly challenged, institutions that defend it consistently become more necessary. And when democratic resilience is under pressure, parliamentary engagement becomes part of our collective security. So I think this is the direction that we should go to. More political engagement, more political visibility, and of course, more political power, if we can say it. So, and not by speaking more loudly, but by ensuring that our voice carries great credibility. And I think this is one of the most important things, and I would like to share with you that in all the meetings that we have, in all the events in which we participate, the real added value is the work that you do on the ground when we observe elections. And this is really the core of this organization. So I think that if we believe that this assembly has an important political role to play, so it is obvious, and I think Johan Buse will explain later on, we need to be also ambitious in terms of our contributions and in terms of financial response. I think this is also clear, and in every meeting in which I take part, and I think, for example, the Serbian delegation can testimony that when landing in the meetings or in the events, at the very first minute, what I ask them is more money. And we had this conversation even before doing the passport control, dear colleagues. So this is the most important thing, that we are also having a political ambition, but also budgetary response that also can be a success via, for example, organizing an event like the event that will be organized in Serbia very soon. So I think today we are not talking just about preserving the assembly as it is, but to evolve in response to the challenges of our time while remaining firmly anchored in the principles on which it was founded. So I think that we are moving in the right direction, and I think that today our political engagement is more clear than ever, and I really would like to thank you, because what gives us a very important credibility is the work that we do in Armenia when we observe, or in Hungary, or very soon when we will be observing in the US or in Kazakhstan. So this is really the future of the organization. So many thanks for having you here, and I hope if you have any questions regarding the written report, and I think there is a request from Ukraine and also a request from Hungary. So yeah, this is maybe, I don't know if Artur wants to take the floor or Mikita. So maybe I would like to give the floor to the delegation of Hungary. I cannot see them because so please take the sorry. Please take the floor, dear madam.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates, across the region we are witnessing a troubling trend, significant pressures on democratic institutions that was specifically mentioned in your report, and democratic resilience is being tested. The rule of law, media freedom, judicial independence, and public trust in democratic governance are being tested in many societies. Yet Hungary's recent experience demonstrated an encouraging lesson. Democratic backsliding can be reversed through democratic participation and the will of its citizens. On April 12th, the Hungarian people chose change through the ballot box. The day became a new hope. Through democratic elections and peaceful transfer of power, citizens demonstrated that even after years of democratic erosion, renewal remains possible within the framework of democratic institutions. For many years, Hungary was cited as an example of democratic backsliding. Concerns were raised about weakened checks and balances, prolonged emergency governance, restrictions on media pluralism, misuse of state resources for political purposes, and growing challenges of the rule of law. Today, we can report a different reality. Following the democratic mandate on April 12th, the new Hungarian government and the new Hungarian parliament has acted decisively in the first 50 days, and I'm happy to report on the few of the developments in this first phase. The prolonged state of emergency has been phased out, and we have returned to the decision-making. We have returned the decision-making to normal legislative process. Reforms have been launched to strengthen judicial independence, and major steps has been taken to abolish the sovereignty office. You might have seen when you've been traveling in Hungary that we had political billboards all over the country. So we've introduced legislation to ban political advertising that was across mesh banners and massive advertisings that was on buildings, and political advertisement and political billboards capable of hate. The government has launched anti-corruption and transparency reforms, strengthening the independence and oversight, rebuilding confidence that has eventually led to freezing the EU funds. The first 50 days have sent a very clear message. Hungary has broken the cycle of democratic backsliding. Through democratic elections, peaceful political change, and the restoration of constitutional safeguards. Hungary has demonstrated a very fact that renewal is actually possible through the will of people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Sopov, and a warm welcome to this Parliamentary Assembly. And I think in the name of the Parliamentary Assembly, I would like to say thank you for the election observation we had there. It was a success. I think it was a huge delegation, and one of the biggest delegations ever after the US elections, I think. And I'm really proud. I met your president, the new president of Parliament in Belgrade during the IPU meeting, and I really just said thank you for letting us observe, and I think we did a fantastic job during this day. So again, most welcome. Thank you very much for your comments, and I would like to give the floor to the Ukrainian delegation.
Mikita, you have the floor. Thank you.
Well, I hope that you can hear me, colleagues. So, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I was asked to share with you the latest news from the very beginning. And news are great. Russia is burning. And we promise you that Russia will burn in next coming months. And if necessary, Russia will burn longer. And let me thank all of you, because Russia is burning because of your support of Ukraine. Let me thank and congratulate our American colleagues on the occasion of 250 years of independence. Young country, so congratulations. And of course, let me thank American colleagues because we use American weapons, we use American technologies, and we also use a lot of European technologies in our modern weapons. We start to produce our ballistic rockets. It's on testing, and I can't share with you all specific information, but a lot of European technologies are applied there from different countries. So as in our anti-aircraft missiles and other types of our weapons. So all these successes are connected with all countries that are fighting together with us for democracy, freedom, and independence of Ukraine, and security of Europe, and security of the whole democratic world. But of course, stressing on latest successes, I call not to be very optimistic, because unfortunately, we have severe lack of anti-ballistic rockets, and it means that in every attack where Russia uses ballistic rockets, we lose our civilians, including children. In bordering regions, Russia also uses guided air bombs against civilians. So there are no masks. They target civilian objects, no military objects. Yesterday in Sumy, they targeted guided air bomb against living area. The whole family was killed, including children. So we are losing children, Ukrainian children, practically every night. Let me stress on it. And we call to all countries that can help us with anti-ballistic missiles, understanding severe deficit that now exists for objective reasons, understanding all these circumstances, we are calling to help us with anti-ballistic missiles if it's possible. And look, we stress, as before, as we do it again and again, that we are open for real peace negotiations, as it was since 2022. We proposed different options to Russians again, and again. But they don't want peace. They don't want any peace. And it's a problem. So that is why we have no other choice only to continue our fight. And if I have, do I have small time?
15 seconds, please.
If 15 seconds, I will tell you this story in my other speech that I hope I will have. So let me thank you, colleagues, again. We are fighting because our backs are covered by our international partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mikita, and I think you know that this Parliamentary Assembly tries to support you every day through the special representative on the Ukrainian children, also with the unit, and also working together, of course, with your team in Vienna and with the authorities in Ukraine, also with the President of the Rada, and also with the team in President's office. So again, thank you very much for your fight. And yeah, we are extremely committed, and I hope that we will come out of this Parliamentary Assembly again with a strong declaration. And also, I would like to say that we also support when there is an initiative of peace, like President Zelensky did, that we supported this letter publicly. But again, the response was very clear, and so there is sometimes no hope, even if we have to have hope until the end. So I would like to ask you one thing. Please take away the headset of the micro, because the translators have a sort of feedback. So please, when you don't put it just close to the micro, okay? Just put it away. So I think Belarus has made a request, and now I would like, then after I would like to pass the floor to the Treasurer for his report, please.
Спасибо, господин председатель. Я хотел бы выступить именно по вашему докладу. В начале выступления хочу отметить положительные действия национальной делегации Нидерландов и руководства Ассамблеи по обеспечению участия белорусской делегации в сессии. Уважаемые коллеги, мы проводим нынешнюю сессию Парламентской Ассамблеи ОБСЕ в условиях продолжающегося кризиса европейской безопасности. Военный конфликт в Восточной Европе, разрушение механизмов контроля над вооружениями, углубление политического раскола на пространстве ОБСЕ и нарастающее недоверие между государствами свидетельствует о том, что прежняя модель обеспечения безопасности на европейском континенте больше не работает. К сожалению, многие дискуссии в нашей организации по-прежнему сосредоточены на последствиях происходящего. Однако без честного разговора о первопричинах кризиса невозможно найти устойчивое решение и обеспечить долгосрочный мир. На протяжении последних десятилетий принцип неделимости безопасности постепенно утрачивал свое практическое значение. Все чаще безопасность одних государств обеспечивалась без учета интересов других. В результате пространство сотрудничества, которое создавалось поколениями политиков и дипломатов, оказалось подорвано, а сама ОБСЕ все чаще становится площадкой для обмена взаимными обвинениями, вместо диалога и поиска компромиссов. Очевидно, что ни санкционное давление, ни наращивание военной инфраструктуры, ни политика изоляции не способны обеспечить прочный мир и стабильность. Напротив, подобные подходы лишь закрепляют конфронтацию и снижают возможности для дипломатического урегулирования кризисных ситуаций. Мы убеждены, что настало время возвращаться в том числе в Парламентской Ассамблее ОБСЕ к серьезному разговору о будущем общеевропейской и евразийской безопасности. Такой диалог должен основываться на равноправии государств, уважении суверенитета, отказе от политики исключения и готовности учитывать законные интересы всех участников. Беларусь последовательно выступает за формирование новой архитектуры безопасности на евразийском пространстве. Речь идет не о замене существующих механизмов новыми блоковыми конструкциями, а о создании системы, которая обеспечивала бы безопасность для всех государств и исключила бы практику укрепления собственной безопасности за счет безопасности других. Мы предлагаем сосредоточить усилия на восстановлении профессионального, политического и военно-политического диалога, развитии мер доверия и транспарентности, возобновлении контактов между экспертами и поиске взаимоприемлемых решений по наиболее чувствительным вопросам безопасности. Наши концептуальные предложения представлены в документе «Хартия многообразия и многополярности в 21 веке». Относительно внесенных на рассмотрение текущей сессии Парламентской Ассамблеи ОБСЕ документов убеждены, что инициированная шведским парламентарием дополнительная резолюция по Беларуси имеет антибелорусскую направленность и носит явно предвзятый и ангажированный характер. Настоятельно призываем инициаторов проекта резолюции по Беларуси не вмешиваться во внутренние дела нашей страны, прикрываясь мнимой заботой о правах человека и региональной безопасности, и отозвать этот документ. Благодарю вас за внимание.
Thank you very much, and I think it was a good opportunity to listen your opinion and your voice and your vision. Even if we don't appreciate, we were here to listen. So I think it's already a point for the Parliamentary Assembly. So I would like to give the floor to Mark Vesey from the US delegation, and then we will close, and I will pass the floor to Johan Buser, please, because if not, we'll be running out of time. Thank you, Mark. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to note with some concern about the photo that the President had with the Georgian Dream leadership that was noted in the President's report that you saw. As all of you know, that the Georgia Dream has consolidated power by violently suppressing peaceful protests. They have also consolidated power by orchestrating mass arrest and by weaponizing state institutions. And so instead of fighting graft, the government's Anti-Corruption Bureau is now used as a political tool that has been used to harass watchdog groups and opposition parties. Of course, that is something that we always fight against here. And while 90% of Georgians passionately support joining the EU, the government has actively blocked the path. It passed a very Russian-style foreign agents law to help muzzle independent media and civil society. And so by abandoning Western integration and deepening ties with China and aligning with Moscow's interests, the government is turning this very strategic nation into a pro-Kremlin enclave. And we don't want to undermine European security. That would create a dangerous foothold for anti-Western influence in the region. And so I just wanted to point that out, because that's very serious, that type of allegation in these times, and we need to take it very seriously. And I yield back, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. And before giving the floor to Johan, I would like to share with you, because I think sometimes it's important to share how things go. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Luis Grassa as a special representative from the South Caucasus, and also I would like to thank all the team who was with this presidency, the Secretariat in Georgia. And also would like to thank the people who observed in 2024. And I would like to say, and I would like to share with you, that before going to Georgia, we spent more than 6 months, discussing with the government of Georgia, discussing with all political opposition parties, and discussion with all the civil actors, whether we have to go or not to Georgia. The response was very clear. We want the Parliamentary Assembly of the RCE in Georgia. We had no opposition to that. Then, once having discussed that with all the actors involved in the present and the future of Georgia, then we decided to share it with the Bureau in an informal meeting in Istanbul, and the majority of the Bureau meeting decided that it was an opportunity to pay a visit to Georgia. What you raised, Mark, this is what we shared. All what you raised, this is what we shared with the President of Georgia, with the Prime Minister of Georgia, with the Chair of the Parliament of Georgia, with the parliamentarians of the government of Georgia, with the parliamentarians of the opposition of Georgia. And I think that we also were capable to deliver publicly a very strong statement that I made in front of more than 25 journalists, in which we asked for the liberation, the release of the Sakharov Prize, the people who are in jail, etc., etc. And of course, I accept, and I totally agree with you, that sometimes you have, as a politician, you have to take risks. And I think today we can say that it was a fruitful conversation, not easy, and still we have in our minds how we can proceed and how we can ameliorate the change in a context of crisis and in a context of erosion of democracy, not only, of course, in Georgia. So, but I understand also your point. I understand your concerns, and you know perfectly that as a politician, and you are a politician, sometimes you have to take risks. So I can give now less than 1 minute to Tobias Winkler from Germany, because Johan is waiting for long already. So please, Tobias, go ahead.
So, Mr. President, dear colleagues, I fully support Mark Riese's concerns. And as you said, Mr. President, it was then clear in the media. I have a totally different impression. In the Porto Declaration, we expressed our deep concerns about the developments. Among other things, we called for the treatment of the opposition and the release of all political prisoners. Yet neither the press release, your press release, nor the social media posts, nor this photo in the today's report by the President adequately reflect this position we had in the Assembly. Therefore, I fully support the criticism on this visit, not only on the visit, but also about the communication and maybe the outcome. I don't know about the talks that have taken place behind the scenes, but in the public impression, this is the opposite of also what you said right now.
Thank you. I endorse all the responsibility, and I feel totally concerned as well, Tobias. So I will pass the floor to Johan for the report of the financial situation and the next budget. Johan, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and dear colleagues and dear members of the Standing Committee. It's good to see all of you again, and I would like to start by thanking the Dutch delegation for organizing this meeting for the upcoming days, and special thanks to Farah Karimi, of course. Having said that, I will now go into the proposed budget and also describe the financial situation of our Parliamentarian Assembly. So as we meet here in The Hague for the 33rd annual session of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, the Standing Committee will consider a proposal for the budget of the upcoming financial year. In drafting a budget proposal, it is the duty of the Treasurer to translate the Assembly's political ambitions into a budgetary framework which is both sustainable and attainable within the organization's available resources. Another aspect of the Treasurer's responsibility is to keep the Assembly informed of the financial situation and position of the organization. I will accordingly give you an overview of the current financial situation and reflect on how it affects the budget for the upcoming year. Over the past 5 years, the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly has spent approximately 1.3 million euros from its reserves. As a result, our reserves have fallen from 2.7 million euros during the COVID period to just under 1.4 million euros of today. And in practical terms, that means that the financial reserves have been reduced by half since the year of 2020-2021. The direct cause of this depletion of the reserves is that Russia has not paid its contributions, a shortfall that amounts to approximately 1 million euros. However, the more honest explanation is that the Assembly has not taken sufficient measures to address Russia's non-payment. Additionally, funds were taken from the reserves even before the Russian Federation decided to stop contributing to the organization. And I think it's important to be honest in this room regarding that. During the previous years, 1.3 million euros have been taken out of the reserves, and out of these, 350,000 euros constitutes a transfer of funds between the financial years during the COVID period. The rest of the funds, approximately 1 million euro, have been taken out because the spending has exceeded available resources. And to put it plainly, the OSCE has spent beyond its means. There has been a continued financial deficit over several years, which we are pressed to address. And, dear colleagues, in the recent audit report, the auditor also stresses that if the Russian non-payment persists without any corrective measures, the reserves will continue to diminish, potentially falling under the critical threshold already by the financial year of 2027 and 2028. This entails a situation where statutory activities like this meeting in Hague could be impacted in the near future, in a couple of years. So therefore, we need to take action and we need corrective measures. And as I have said, I see it as a fundamental task of the Treasurer to ensure that the budget contains sufficient resources for the Assembly to realize its political ambitions. For these reasons, I would like to be clear and reiterate my message to the Standing Committee. Now is the time for the Assembly to act responsibly and ensure that its finances remain strong and sustainable. This is the moment to take necessary action to avoid further deficits and to ensure that the Assembly has the resources it needs to carry out its important mission. I have worked closely together, dear colleagues, with the Secretary General in preparing this budget, and in April, the Secretary General visited the Swedish Parliament together with his team for a budgetary meeting. We agreed on 3 important measures to strengthen the Assembly's financial position and prevent further erosion of our reserves. Firstly, we agree that no further money should be taken from the emergency reserve during the current or upcoming financial years without an explicit political decision by President and Treasurer. Secondly, the Secretary General will develop and present an action plan with concrete measures to rebuild and restore the Assembly's reserves over time. And this could be, for example, be presented at the upcoming autumn meeting in Andorra. And the third thing we agreed upon is that if the proposed budget today is not adopted, there will be, like the last year, a zero nominal growth budget, and it will be implemented, and it includes provisions to ensure that expenditure does not exceed the expected income. So these are, the proposed budget will be an increase, if it gets adopted, by 4.49%, but these 3 conditions that we agreed upon is the prerequisite for adopting this budget. So most importantly, I have implemented these principles into the proposed budget for the 2026 and 2027 financial year. The draft proposal that has been sent out to the Standing Committee in accordance with Rule 41.1 of the Rules of Procedure ensures that expenditures fully align the foreseeable income from participating states. In practice, it means that it takes into account the expected non-payment by the Russian Federation and adjusts expenditure also accordingly. The objective is clear: to eliminate structural deficits and avoid any further withdrawals from reserves. The proposal includes critical investments where the Assembly's added value is the greatest. An additional 64,000 euros would be allocated for election observation missions, reflecting their importance to our mandate. Resources for statutory meetings are also increased, including the annual session as well as the winter meeting. As the President, the Secretary General, and myself noted in our joint letter in June, the proposed budget entails an increase of 4.49%, which has already been mentioned. And this is not proposed lightly. It is a carefully considered proposal to preserve and strengthen the Assembly's operational capacity while also maintaining a sound and stable financial foundation. In conclusion, the proposed budget for the 2026-2027 financial year represents a balanced response to the challenges facing our organization. It is a budget that guarantees financial stability by aligning expenses with foreseeable income while also investing in our core activities. Looking ahead, greater transparency within our organization remains an important priority. At the Bureau meeting in Copenhagen in April, Bureau members expressed strong support for efforts to strengthen transparency and openness within the Assembly and its finances. At the Bureau meeting, members discussed strengthening financial oversight, and I and the Secretary General have agreed to hold regular budget follow-ups and report also to the Bureau. We have also engaged with the Subcommittee on Rules of Procedure and representatives of major contributing participating states to explore ways of enhancing transparency, accountability, and the financial regulatory framework. In my role as Treasurer, I also remain committed to strengthening the Assembly's finances through extra budgetary contributions. In line with this effort, proposed changes of rules on minimum national contributions is being discussed in parallel with the budget process. Following consultations that I've had with delegations, it is, however, clear that the proposal requires further discussions, and it will not be submitted for any decision here at the Standing Committee in The Hague this time. In this regard, I also would like to recognize the delegations that have provided additional support. Voluntary and extra-budgetary contributions have become increasingly important. Contributions from countries as Estonia, Iceland, Latvia, Liechtenstein, Lithuania, San Marino, Switzerland, Norway, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Montenegro show that delegations understand the need to support the Assembly's work in practical ways. If not earmarked for a thematic or programmatic activity, such contributions support statutory meetings and activities and election monitoring. I also wish to acknowledge the continued support from Denmark for the headquarters in Copenhagen and Austria for the Vienna office, as well as the support of host parliaments for statutory meetings like here in Netherlands today. These forms of support reduce the burden on the regular budget and help preserve the Assembly's operational capacity. So, dear colleagues, as OSCE parliamentarians, we should be proud of being part of such an active and dedicated Assembly. We must, however, recognize and address the financial challenges before us before it is too late. Doing so, we will ensure that the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly remains a resilient, strong, and resolute organization, ready to fulfill our entrusted mandate. I therefore hope that the Standing Committee will support and approve the budget proposal I have presented today. I welcome any questions and look forward to hearing your comments and advice on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Johan. I think there is one request from first from Germany, already they request the floor, another one from Cyprus and France and Norway and Finland. Perfect. So we start with Tobias Winkler.
Dear Mr. President, thank you very much. Dear Mr. Dear Mr. Treasurer, this was really hard work, and I totally appreciate that you brought light into the budget when we see how our financial situation is. And I want to repeat your warning about our financial situation. Everyone in this room must be clear that we live over our income, that we live over, that we spend much more money than we get. And this has to be stopped. We need a reserve. We need it for political reasons, and therefore I'm happy that you mentioned it, and I'm even more happy that there is a very constructive work also by the leadership. I appreciate, President Pons, that you go to the different delegations and that you advertise for spending more for solid financial support for this organization. I appreciate the Secretary General, which after the Bureau meeting in Copenhagen brought transparency in many questions the Treasurer needed for his report. And I hear today that there were 3 agreements. The first one, to not further take out money of the reserves. The second one, the Secretary General presents an action plan to how to restore the reserve, and will present it in Andorra. I don't know if this was a part of the agreement. And the third one, that there's a 0 nominal growth budget if there's no agreement today. My question is, for me, this is a precondition. These 3 things is a precondition for my approval of the budget. Is this the opinion of the Treasurer, or are these commitments proved also by the Secretary General or the President? I think it's the Secretary General. Is this fixed? Can we rely on these commitments?
Thank you very much, Tobias. Irene Karambidis has the floor.
I think I will be on the same line with Tobias. First of all, let me comment on the great job that Johan is doing. He's putting a lot of effort, and he's the reason we are very well aware of what's going on when it comes to the financial aspect of the organization. But I cannot get over the discussion we had in Copenhagen. And it was a discussion about transparency. It was a discussion about the money of the European citizens and other countries like Canada, USA, are paying for this organization. And may I remind you that colleagues of mine were deprived the right of speech because some bodies on the head table, they wanted not to give them the right to speak up. And what I'm wondering is why we came here today with promises instead of having things already resolved. We are hearing promises for the last years. Is not now this discussion opened. The discussion concerning transparency when it comes to budget started many years ago. And though we had this strong and intense meeting in Copenhagen, we reached Hague with promises. Why were not things resolved and we still hear promises? And what if these promises are not kept? Because it's not the first time that promises were not kept. This assembly has the right to know every single penny in this organization, how is spent. We do not at the moment. And Johan, you were one of the first to point this out during the Bureau meeting in Copenhagen. I really regret the fact that colleagues of mine, like Tobias, like Gudrun, did not have the right to finish their arguments about transparency. So, I don't trust promises. I want to know why these things were not resolved, and if I don't get satisfying answers, I'm not going to vote for the 4.5% increase, because I don't know how this money will be spent. That is the conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Aideen. I think the Norway delegation has the floor, and then I will pass the floor to the French delegation. The Norway delegation has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank the Treasurer and the International Secretariat for a thorough report. And the report makes clear that the Assembly faces genuine financial challenges with the absence of the Russian contributions combined with inflation and growing activity levels that requires responsible actions from all of us. My delegation therefore welcomes the efforts undertaken to strengthen the Assembly's financial sustainability and reduce reliance on reserves. First, my delegation supports the overall direction of the proposed budget. We recognize that the Assembly must have the resources necessary to carry out its core tasks. And secondly, transparency, openness, and accountability must remain at the center of our work. And as we ourselves have to be transparent in our parliaments, we fully expect the same from the OCPA, because it must not be forgotten that the resources allocated to this assembly comes from taxpayers' money across our participating states. And we therefore have a duty to ensure that every euro is spent wisely and that member parliaments have confidence in how those funds are managed. Third, at the time when reform discussions are taking place across the wider OCE, my delegation believes it is also healthy for the Parliamentary Assembly to examine its own priorities. My delegation places considerable importance on oversight and independent performance reviews, and we see the business performance audits as a valuable tool for ensuring good governance, transparency, and value for money. We are therefore skeptical of proposals to reduce the frequencies of these reviews. Finally, election observation remains one of the Assembly's most important and visible contributions. Norway recently provided an additional voluntary contribution specifically earmarked for election observation activities because we regard this as a core function of the OCPA. And we are therefore pleased to see election observation remain a clear priority in the proposed budget, and we agree that the Assembly should be prepared to support future electoral processes. In conclusion, my delegation supports the overall direction outlined in the Treasurer's report, but we do expect more transparency and not least a stronger will to prioritize fundamental OCPA key activities in member areas going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, dear colleague. I will pass the floor to the French delegation and then to Finland.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Depuis de nombreuses années, la France a la même position sur le budget. Et elle se félicite du budget à 0 augmentation brute obtenu l'année dernière. Dans le contexte économique actuel, les budgets liés à la diplomatie parlementaire sont particulièrement scrutés. Conscient que l'absence de contribution russe depuis 2025 nous oblige à une réflexion de fond sur le budget, et en tout état de cause, avant que nos réserves ne soient épuisées, donc que les dépenses ne dépassent plus les recettes, pour reprendre les termes de notre trésorier, je tiens ici à souligner les efforts du président et du trésorier pour trouver des solutions acceptables dans la proposition de budget pour maintenir l'opérabilité de l'institution. Les variables d'ajustement sont limitées si nous voulons que la diplomatie parlementaire des actes d'Helsinki continue d'exister. La France insiste sur le fait que l'APOSCE puisse continuer à travailler en particulier sur le cœur de métier que sont les missions d'observation des élections. Et nous nous réjouissons que celle au Kazakhstan puisse avoir lieu au mois d'août, en espérant que celle des midterms aux États-Unis puisse se réaliser également. Je tiens à rappeler ici que le secrétariat international fait des efforts et que cette petite équipe d'une dizaine de permanents doit être soutenue et ne saurait servir de variable d'ajustement. La France est très attachée à l'autonomie de ce secrétariat et de son secrétaire général. L'autonomie, la neutralité, l'indépendance font partie de la transparence. Cela constitue un gage de neutralité auquel la France est tout particulièrement attentive. Enfin, la France soutient le dispositif proposé par le président et le trésorier pour que certains pays augmentent leur contribution de base en fonction d'un pourcentage de leur PIB, au-delà du barème inchangé depuis 30 ans, fixé au niveau intergouvernemental. Cette modalité permettrait de tenir compte de l'évolution économique de certains pays depuis 30 ans, ce dont nous devons nous réjouir. Elle fait l'objet de beaucoup de réticences, nous le savons, notamment de pays proches et amis de la France. Notre délégation rappelle que ces fonds supplémentaires ne diminueraient pas la contribution des autres États, mais permettraient au contraire d'augmenter des fonds alloués aux activités telles que les missions d'observation des élections. La question de la clé de répartition demeure donc un vrai sujet et nous regrettons qu'elle ait été retirée de l'ordre du jour, faute de consensus, nous comprenons, probablement inchangeable au regard des règles de vote, ce que la France déplore, tant ici à l'APOSCE qu'au niveau intergouvernemental. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Monsieur Lecomte. The delegation of Finland has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Excellent job. I understand the difficult task that you are facing, protecting this important organization, and I think you have done a great job. A couple of questions. I am wondering, when it comes to saving money, have we considered at all about the length of these meetings, maybe shorten them? In NATO PA, they have taken these actions, and also in talking about interpreters, having distance interpreters or even AI-based ones. That is something if I'm not mistaken, in European Council, in some of the committees, they have tried these measures. And to me, I mean, at the end of the day, it's taxpayers' money, and we have to be really careful. And I'm curious if we are able to do these kind of measures that some other organizations are doing. But overall, thank you, Treasurer, for a great job.
Thank you, dear colleague. Now the delegation from the UK has the floor, and then we will move to San Marino.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President. I just want to intervene to say this, that I am very much heartened by what I see as the significant and positive steps forward since the Bureau meeting in Copenhagen. We're all absolutely alert to the fact that there are significant financial challenges. There are challenges in lots of spheres, and clearly the continuing and repeated removal of money from the reserves is not a situation that we can continue with. However, I am also completely heartened by the undertakings that we have heard from the Treasurer from the platform this morning. And I think the introduction of budgetary updates, where there is a meeting with the Treasurer and the Secretary-General so as to be clear how things are progressing, is both a necessary and welcome step. And I take these as undertakings, not vague promises, but undertakings. And I think when it comes to questions of transparency, there may be lots of us sitting in this room who say the word transparency, but what we have in our head is something completely different from the person sitting next to us. So I would like, at the point at which we get some action plan on paper, that we are clear about what we're actually talking about when we say transparency. Because it seems to me that these steps which the Treasurer, the President and the Secretary General have taken and were outlined in the letter, and if we can get commitment to the 4.49% increase, the organisation will be on a very much more stable footing. That's not to say that we won't face challenges in the future, and there is a discussion about the review or audit of business practice, but we do need to make sure that we leave here with an agreed budget. And I am much, much heartened by what has happened since the meeting in Copenhagen in order to ensure that we move together on a sound footing. Thank you.
Thank you. And now San Marino has the floor. Oscar, you have the floor, Oscar Mina.
Sì, grazie Presidente. Ringrazio anche il tesoriere Johan Buser per l'illustrazione del bilancio di cui San Marino ovviamente sostiene pienamente. Io volevo intervenire perché il tema della trasparenza e della accountability del segretariato internazionale credo sia sempre in discussione in questo ultimo periodo e credo che la trasparenza non è una questione aperta. È già stata verificata e certificata da diversi anni attraverso degli audit indipendenti condotti per esempio da Deloitte e credo sia una delle società di revisione a livello internazionale che sia le più importanti. Queste verifiche non rappresentano solo un investimento significativo per un bilancio già sottoposto a forti pressioni, ma non hanno mai evidenziato irregolarità o criticità nella gestione. Per questo motivo ritengo che continuare a parlare di questa trasparenza e rivolgervi sempre al segretariato credo che sia una questione che non è tangibile, visto che il problema è stato risolto e questo non contribuisce sicuramente a rafforzare la nostra Assemblea, al contrario rischia di indebolire la credibilità di un'istituzione che tutti noi, almeno a parole, diciamo di volere tutelare. C'è poi un secondo aspetto che volevo evidenziare. Il segretariato internazionale svolge ogni giorno un lavoro complesso al servizio di 57 delegazioni, in un contesto internazionale sempre più difficile e imprevedibile. E per continuare a garantire questo livello di professionalità ha bisogno di stabilità, di fiducia e di risorse adeguate. Quindi credo che concentrare il dibattito sul segretariato e parlare ancora di trasparenza non aiuti assolutamente ad affrontare le vere sfide che abbiamo davanti. Anzi, dicevo, rischia di indebolire proprio l'unica struttura professionale permanente sulla quale questa Assemblea può contare. Perché alla fine la vera accountability consiste non soltanto nel dimostrare come spendiamo il nostro bilancio, ma soprattutto nel dimostrare quali risultati siamo stati capaci di conseguire che i cittadini che rappresentiamo vedono tangibilmente. Quindi la vera questione non è se il segretariato gestisce correttamente le risorse, le verifiche, eccetera. Ce lo dicono già gli audit che abbiamo fatto che lo testimoniano. La domanda è solamente quella che dovremmo porre. Siamo davvero disposti come Assemblea a mettere il segretariato nelle condizioni di lavorare ancora meglio, fornendogli le risorse e la fiducia necessarie per svolgere questo mandato? Questa è la domanda che dovremmo porci. San Marino ha sostenuto ovviamente la proposta di aumento del bilancio del 4,49% proposto dal segretariato e dal tesoriere, che assolutamente sosterremo per continuare a fare questo lavoro, perché noi crediamo in questa Assemblea, ha una funzione politica e la governance è una scelta politica di questa Assemblea, che è letteralmente sovrana. L'integrità amministrativa invece è una questione di fatti. Quindi noi non vogliamo confondere questi due piani e non rafforzare questa Assemblea, perché la credibilità che ha non deve essere indebolita. Grazie.
Just before I give the floor again to Johan, if he wants to react to any of the remarks that were made. I would like to say just two things, because I'm also the head of the Spanish delegation. The first thing that I would like to say is that I'm very proud of this Parliamentary Assembly. I'm very, very, very proud of the job that we do with such a miserable budget. This is the reality. This year, the Parliamentary Assembly of NATO has approved a budget increase of 9.5%. Just to let you know, it's the reality. Another element. I think we cannot reduce more. I was in Paris this week. I was alone. No one was coming with me from the Secretariat. So we are reducing as much as possible. It's just a joke, but it's our reality. I'm also proud of the work done by the Secretariat as a president, and I'm also proud of the work done by the Treasurer. So I think in the end, we are all on the same boat. And as this is a political organization, logically, we have political differences. And I think Christine mentioned it, and I'm going to give the floor to Johan, that in the end, transparency in Spain maybe is not the same than in Mongolia or in the US. But in the end, I think we all want to drive and move forward and to grow. And I would like to end, and I will pass because the Portuguese want to speak before you, Johan, is that most of the things that are experiencing, we are due to the success of the organization. Because just to let you know, if we send more than 120 persons, MPs to Armenia, the cost is not the same that if we send 70 parliamentarians. It's a reality. The huge cost is not only because we have to go there, it's because we are increasing the numbers. And I give green light to all the requests. I could also stop at 70 and could say no way. And this is one of the things, but this is one of the things. And the other reality, we don't have to be naive, is that it is exceptional that one of the countries is today not contributing, but we all have to know that this budget at the OC level, today the unified budget is also green-lighted, so also we have to reflect on this. So Johan, before I give you the floor, I will pass the floor to the Portuguese, and then of course if you want to react, and if not, we have to vote, because this is the most important thing today. We have to vote. If we increase the budget, we pass the budget with this 4.5%, and I really thank Johan for this increase, for this suggestion, and I totally support it, totally support this increase. But then let's give the floor to the Portuguese, then to Johan, and then we will have to vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate you gave me the floor. It's 1 minute or two. I want to thank Johan for the great job and great work, and especially for his persistence and for his fight for transparency and for a better budget. Thank you, Johan, for that. And I trust that in that commitment that we made between the President and the Treasurer, I fully trust it. And I'm sure that if there is any breach of this commitment, Johan will notice us immediately. That's what I'm sure that will happen, because I know Johan, and I think that's how Johan is. If there are anything wrong, I think we will immediately know. So, if we have any doubts before, there are not a reason to have doubts today. So, I trust in the budget Johan showed us, and I fully support your budget and your work, and thank you again.
Thank you, dear Paula, and I would like to give the floor to Johan Buzek.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues, for all your comments and also for supporting the budget proposal and also taking this process seriously in the situation we are in. I forgot one thing, actually, in my speech, and I forgot to thank also Luxembourg, who is the biggest extra budgetary contributor, actually. So I would like to really thank Luxembourg as well, since I forgot to mention Luxembourg. Just making a few comments on what has been said. Yes, to Germany. It is what we agreed upon in Stockholm with Secretary General, with these 3 prerequisites that we should not take out any more money of the reserves, that the Secretary General will present an action plan on to restore the budget reserves. We didn't agree on Andorra, but I think it would be a good option to do it in Andorra since the Standing Committee convenes the next time in Andorra. And the third one is that if the budget proposal will not be accepted here today, there will be a 0% budget, and even that one needs to the income to cover the expenses without taking out more money from the reserves. This is what we agreed upon, and when I finished, I think it's good also that the Secretary General can comment, since you asked for that. So regarding the comments from Cyprus, yes, since the Bureau meeting we had in Copenhagen, I have had talks with Secretary General regarding the transparency. He has sent me some of the documents that I've requested for, and I will go on requesting for more documents in the autumn, as a normal practice, of course. We've also agreed that the Bureau should get regular budget follow-ups, because that hasn't been the case earlier. The Treasurer should get budget follow-ups every third month. That hasn't been the case either earlier on how we are doing. The Treasury is also signing the financial statement yearly, and that means that the Treasurer should have access to basic financial documents. I don't see that as a problem. And I think it's also important for the Treasurer to have the political insight, not only the auditor insight. It's also important, since we are a political organization, that the elected one also have the political insight. So that is what we mean when talking about transparency. But I think we will solve this, and I hope we will get the support for the budget proposal also from the Cypriotic organization. And I also thank Norway for their comments on the supporting budget proposal, talking about transparency. France, the French delegation, they made comments on the smallest paying contributors, and we've had meetings with the smallest paying contributors, and some of them decided to support voluntarily, some of them opposed. So we are still in continuing these discussions, because it's an important discussions for sure. Finland commented on the length of the meetings. I think it's a political discussion. It's nothing for me to comment on, but this is of course one measure that can be discussed, the length of the annual sessions, for example. And yeah, so that was the thing. The United Kingdom made a comment on the financial challenges and the reserves, and also transparency and action plan, and I agree with what the UK said on that. San Marino made some comments on transparency, and I think I've already commented on my view on the transparency and the audits and so on, and the political insights. So I think I've commented on most of it. So thank you once again for all your supporting comments, and hope that you now will support the budget proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johan. And we will now proceed with the formal approval of the budget. So please prepare your cards. Your voting card. It's an important moment. Yeah, no, I know. But does anyone oppose the adoption of the budget for the financial year from 1 October 2026 to 30 September 2027? Anybody objects? Okay. So the budget will be made available to the Assembly in accordance with paragraph 2 of Rule 41 of the Rules of Procedure. So the budget has been adopted, because there was a need of 2 not to pass. So you want to take, Albania wants to take the floor? No. So the budget has been adopted.
There is one more thing.
I don't know if Johan wants to say something.
There was a request to Secretary General to comment on.
Yeah, but maybe he will. What I will suggest is that he has to present the report. The Secretary General will represent his report, and he will have the time, all the time he wants to make comments on this. I apologize. I did not. I forgot him actually. So now we have to go to the point 5.1. Because there is a proposed amendment that I know that there is no consensus on this. I could simply withdraw the item, but I would like to explain the logic of this presidency to make an amendment on the role of, let's say, organizations which are present during the plenary session, during the annual session, during the winter session, and during the summer session. They will be here. And one of them is TURPA, the parliamentary organization of the Turkish states. And they are already here since years. But there is actually a prerogative, which is the prerogative of the president to let organizations like TURPA and others speak, because they are not observers. They have such a status that they are not allowed to speak ex officio. It has to be the prerogative of the president. So if you let me explain the logic, I was very recently I was in some IPU meetings, as in other meetings, and at the IPU level, the TURPA organization and others in multilateral organizations, at the end of the sessions, they also have a point in which they can speak, they can raise their hands, and they can express their views. So when I was at the IPU in Belgrade, I witnessed that there were some organizations that could speak that they have no right here. So I was thinking, and I'm thinking, that it's much better to concede a role of observer to these kind of organizations, that they can, if they have MPs present in the room, that they can take the floor. Not only because they can take the floor, but because, from my point of view, it's a way of growing. I've been in contact with the Council of Europe the last year. I've been in one session in the IPU, and my intention is to be more present in the places in which, in general, we were not present. So I'm not saying that I like more or less the TURPA organization. It's an organization like any other. And what I suggested in this amendment is to let them have the condition of observers. That's all. I know that there is no consensus. I already got some opposition for that. I see already the Cyprus delegation raising her hand, also the Greece delegation. So I could simply say there is no consensus. I stop the debate, but as a president, I prefer to listen to your arguments, to listen to your position, not to allow this organization to have, Azerbaijan also wants to have a role. Just to let me end with one thing. The president has the prerogative to give the floor to the TURPA if I want. So I prefer to create a sort of framework than to have the right, the authoritarian right to give them the floor. So I give the floor to Irene, then to the Greek delegation, and then to Azerbaijan. So again, thank you very much for participating into this debate.
Mr. President, I really cannot understand how you will expand this organization with delegations that are already members. All the states that are members of TURPAC, they are already represented in these organizations with their delegations. So, according to your logic, what kind of expansion is this? And I regret to say that it's the first time that the president of an international organization is trying to open the back door for the Northern Cyprus, which is an occupied area of a European country, not recognized by anybody. And what you are suggesting, in order to give an example, is that imagine, and I challenge you, if Donetsk or South Ossetia or even Catalonia in your own country, Mr. President, were going to be admitted even as observers in the OSCE-PA. Now, at the outset, I wish to stress very clearly that my concern is not directed against parliamentary cooperation with any Central Asia countries, because they are members and we are all working together. But what you suggest, it relates to international law violation. I repeat that. And to the possible political and legal implications of admitting Turkba as an observer, while Turkba includes, among others, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, the so-called Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus also participate as an observer. This is an illegal secessionist entity in the occupied part of the Republic of Cyprus. This runs directly counter to the relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions, in particular, resolutions 541 and 550, which call upon all states not to recognize any Cypriot state other than the Republic of Cyprus and not to facilitate or assist the secessionist entity. Cyprus is an EU member state. European Union has also repeatedly made clear that any action which could facilitate or assist directly or indirectly the international recognition of the Turkish Cypriot secessionist entity is incompatible with international law and with the relevant UN Security Council resolutions. It should also be recalled that the member states of Turkba, as I said before, already participate fully in the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly through their representative national delegations. In my view, the proposed amendment, and I regret that it's coming from the president of this organization, could unintentionally serve as a vehicle for the indirect legitimation of the illegal secessionist entity in the occupied part of Cyprus. It would also raise serious questions as to how consistently our assembly safeguards international law, territorial integrity, and the principles on which the OSCE itself is founded. Moreover, it could set a dangerous precedent for other secessionist entities in the OSCE area and beyond that. For these reasons, and with full respect to the delegations of the which are members of the Turkpak, and for the importance of parliamentary cooperation with Central Asia, I will vote against this amendment. And I kindly urge colleagues to carefully consider its wider political and legal implications and to vote against it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene, and the Greek delegation. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Of course, I'm in favor of parliamentary cooperation, and especially in countries of Central Asia. Nevertheless, there is a problem with the observers. And to be honest, Mr. President, I wouldn't have liked to see cooperation with a parliamentary organization which may have as an observer Transnistria, because I understand that Moldova would have been upset, Abkhazia or South Ossetia, because I know the problems with Georgia, or Donetsk People's Republic or Luhansk People's Republic in the case of Ukraine. This is something that it is totally against our principles, and we have to be very, very careful on this issue. From this point of view, I'm totally against this proposal.
I appreciate your words, dear colleague. So now we have Azerbaijan, followed by Turkey, and then Romania. Thank you. Azerbaijan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for bringing the subject to the agenda. To begin with, I mean, the Assembly might be under the wrong impression that this organization is entirely about the Cyprus issue. No, it's not. I mean, it is just an organization for cooperation between its member states. And as for the how much admitting an organization whose members are also overlapping members of the Assembly, I think it should be seen as an advantage And so we are admitting one of our own, so not a stranger. Every full member of this assembly is also a member of, every member of this Turkwa is also a member of the OECD PA. Well, it's not a outside to this bloc, I would say. It is a part of the Helsinki family, and which simply would like to deepen its dialogue with our assembly. Turkwa is a proven responsible partner founded in 2008. It has a secretariat which is in Baku. It already holds observer status with many international entities and cooperation mechanisms. It has with the IPU, Parliamentary Assembly of the OIC, PAPSEC, and many others. So, and most importantly, as a matter of substantive aspect, it closes a gap we always want to gap. Session after session, we are talking about the connectivity, middle line, middle corridor, etc., and cooperation, deepening cooperation with Central Asia and Caucasus. Turkey is a natural parliamentary bridge to that. So it is just helping to achieve our vision. So most importantly, observer status is not about endorsement, it's about dialogue. So Turkey simply would like to come here to listen to this. Actually, as a matter of established practice, they have been attending our sessions as guests for many years. I do not see any harm from it other than benefit from dialogue. I mean, of course, observers just, of course, they cannot vote, that's clear. And it's the entire Helsinki premise. We are here to let people exchange, listen to our views, and most importantly, as for this subject of the Cyprus issue, the international status of Northern Cyprus predates much early, predates the establishment of the Organization of Turkic States. It started in 1979 when it was first admitted as an observer to the Organization of Islamic Conference back then. So, and therefore, I urge the colleagues not to turn this issue in the as a part of the Cyprus debate. I mean, it's not. It is an organization for cooperation and dialogue between our own states, and which simply wants to have dialogue with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to the Turkian delegation and to Romania.
Evet. Sayın Başkan, değerli meslektaşlarım, hepinizi saygıyla, hürmetle selamlıyorum. Sevgili İrena'ya da özel selamlarımı söylüyorum. 6 yıldır beraber çalışıyoruz bu demokratik ortamda. Başlangıçta çok iyi ilişkilerimiz olmadı ama sonra çok yakın arkadaşlık oluşturduk. Birbirimize karşı özel sevgimiz, muhabbetimiz var ama Kıbrıs noktasını veyahut da Yunanistan, Kıbrıs, Türkiye ilişkilerini çok fazla bu platformda problem etmemeye çalıştık. Biraz önce de konuştum kendisiyle özelde. Ne olursa olsun Güney Kıbrıslılar, Kuzey Kıbrıslılar, Yunanlılar ve Türkler bu coğrafyada barış içerisinde kıyamete kadar yaşamak durumundalar. Birbirimizi anlamak durumundayız. Politik olarak farklı düşüncelerimiz olabilir. Politik olarak birbirimizle farklı çatışmalarımız olabilir ama insani olarak birlikte yaşamayı seçmemiz, sevgiyi, kardeşliği seçmemiz lazım gelir diye düşünüyorum. Kıbrıs meselesini bu Türkmen'in gözlemci üyelik noktasında gündeme getirilmesini de çok doğru bulmuyorum. Kıbrıs'ta bir işgal veya istila söz konusu değil. O kelimeyi kullanmasını da çok üzüntüyle karşıladığımı özellikle belirtmek istiyorum. Kıbrıs'ta adanın bölünmesi 1974 yılından çok daha önce 1963 yılında Kıbrıslı Rumların 1960 anlaşmalarını ve tüm insan hakları normlarını ihlal ederek Kıbrıslı Türkleri ortaklık devletinin kurumlarından ve kendi evlerinden silah zoruyla çıkarmalarıyla ve katliamla başlamış bir problem. Ve şu anda Kıbrıs'ın Kuzey Kıbrıs tarafında bir devlet var. İster tanınsın, ister tanınmasın. Uluslararası kurumların tanıyıp tanımaması da çok bizim için bir anlam ifade etmiyor. Orada özgür ve hür yaşayan, demokratik yapısı olan bir devlet var. Ve o devlet uluslararası birçok kuruluşun gözlemci olarak da üyesi olarak bulunuyor. Ben Türkmen'in veyahut da başka bu gibi organizasyonların bizim AGİT'in bünyesinde gözlemci olarak bulunmalarının bize değer kattığını düşünüyorum. Sadece AGİT'in üyesi 57 ülkenin bir arada bulunarak kendi değerlendirmelerini kendileri konuşup kendileri yapmalarının dünyanın diğer bölgelerinde yaşayan olaylarla alakalı kulaklarını tıkamalarının gerçeği görme noktasında bizi çok faydalı olmayacağını düşünüyorum. Bunu yapmak doğru bir şey değil. Burada bölgesel çatışmalarımızın ve bölgesel problemlerimizi 57 ülkenin, dünyanın, Kuzey Yarımküre'nin bütün ülkelerinin üye olduğu bir platforma taşımak ne kadar gerçekçi bilmiyorum. Ben her şeye rağmen Kıbrıs'ta yaşayan Türklerin de Rumların da barış ve kardeşlik içerisinde yaşaması lazım geldiğini düşünüyorum. Bir daha silahların olmaması lazım geldiğini düşünüyorum. Ben politik olarak farklı düşünmemize rağmen, farklı sorunlarımız olmasına rağmen güneyde yaşayan Rumlara da, Yunanistan'da yaşayan Rumlara da sevgilerimizi, muhabbetlerimizi gönderiyorum. Kardeşlik duygularımızı gönderiyorum. Bu platformların bizi daha fazla çatışmaya itmekten ziyade daha ortak noktalarda buluşmak için fırsat olmasını temenni ediyorum. Türkba gözlemci olmasa bile burada misafir olarak geliyor, söz alabiliyor, konuşuyor. Ama bu Türkba'yı getirip de Kıbrıs meselesi üzerinden bir sorun alanına çevirmenin de çok doğru olmadığını düşünüyorum. Son söz bu konuyla alakalı değil ama biraz önce söz almadım. Ben özellikle Yuhan'a, Genel Sekretere ve Başkan'a teşekkür ediyorum. Bütçe boyutunda da yapmış oldukları alanı desteklediğimizi, çalışmalarını tebrik ettiğimi söylemek istiyorum. Teşekkür ediyorum.
Merci à la délégation turque. Je passe la parole à la délégation de l'Arménie.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, first of all, Mr. President, I would like to salute your intention to increase dialogue in the OSCE area, and I think this shows interest in a better future. I don't think that it is our interest to close in. The OSCE Parliamentary Assembly has always benefited from engaging with parliamentary organizations that share interest in dialogue, regional stability, and international cooperation. This is why we are here. Observer status does not confer membership or decision-making rights, but it creates the opportunity for dialogue. And the OSCE area faces increasingly complex security challenges that require broader dialogue, not less. Building bridges between parliamentary institutions contributes to confidence, transparency, and the exchange of good practice. And the countries represented within the Turpa are important partners for many participating states in the OSCE area. Facilitating parliamentary context and dialogue can only strengthen our collective efforts to promote security and cooperation. And as representative of Romania and as Vice President of this Assembly, I will support this proposal and I encourage colleagues to do the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear colleague. I will give 30 seconds to Azai from Azerbaijan, to Mikita Potorayev, and I would like to just to close because we have a lot of things to do and we have the report of the Secretary General. So, Azai and Mikita. Azai, very, very briefly, please.
Thank you. Thank you, dear President, dear colleagues. Just, I'd like to take the few momentum to speak for the proposal you made. I understand that there is no consensus as we have to have the -1, but for the sake of the objectiveness and the fairness, I'd like to make sure that our two other colleagues must know that this is not about any recognition of any entity. This is about the granting the possibility or the right as an observer to attend the statutory meetings and to expand the door of cooperation and dialogue. And on the other hand, we have other cases when we accepted the PAPSEC, which was also the member of the PAPSEC, Parliamentary Assembly of the Black Sea Corporation organization, but they also member of the OECD Parliamentary Assembly. The fact that, or the argument against using that all the TUCPA members are the members of OECPA is not, I'm afraid that is not valid at all. And also, as my colleague from Romania rightly mentioned, that it doesn't give any right for observer organization to make any decision or to attend in any decision-making processes. This is why I do believe that the proposed amendment is fully in line with the commitments and with the interests of OECD Parliamentary Assembly, as it opens new opportunity for the regional cooperation that TUCPA represents. Thank you.
Thank you, Dear Mikita.
Colleagues, very briefly, we all remember how many years Azerbaijani Republic was waiting of restoration of its territorial integrity. And Ukraine always supported Azerbaijan in its wish to restore territorial integrity. And when our Azerbaijani colleagues say that it's worth to open the door to TUCPA, we support because we know the price. We know the price that Azerbaijan paid. And when our Romanian colleagues say that it is worth to strengthen our Black Sea cooperation, we support Romanian position because it is mutually beneficial. So if now we could have voting for this question, Ukraine would support. Because I think understandable reasons. Because countries which were fighting, or now as we are fighting for our territorial integrity and sovereignty, we understand all the risks, but we also support dialogue and mutual understanding and wider cooperation between different international organizations.
Thank you very much, Mikita, and thank you very much to all for the positions. And I think the conversation, that the interventions, the point raised, demonstrate that it was a good point to bring this to the table. I really don't think that we can link it to the situation in Cyprus. I fully understand what Irene said, but it was not my intention. My intention was much more simple. I was in the EPU. The EPU is a very, very big organization, and they are having also a lot of interaction worldwide. And this is what I'm trying to do as president, trying to increase, trying to think big. And of course, just to give you an example, I appreciate that you mentioned the Catalan example, because in Spain, we are not a partisan constitution system. It means that in the morning, the Catalan people were trying to dissolve the state of Spain, going to a referendum, illegal referendum, and in the afternoon, the MPs were sitting in parliament saying that they wanted to dissolve the parliament and wanted to dissolve the state. And this is the democracy. You can be a non-militant, a non-partisan, a non-militant democracy, like in Germany and Italy after the Second World War, and it's totally defendable. It's normal. So I'm just trying to share with you that we have a strategic opportunity to grow as an organization. So if you want to discuss about the implications, I think we don't need TUCPA to discuss about the situation in Northern Cyprus. It will be raised, as the delegation of Turkey said. We don't need them. The discussion will be over and over, and what we have to do is try to have a dialogue to find solutions. This is, I think, the added value of this organization. But of course, if I understood well, the Cyprus delegation and the Greek delegation are against, clearly against. So if you have voted against, I think it's better not to bring this to vote. But I don't know, maybe you may be telling you that if you don't want...
Bring it to vote.
Okay, so I bring it to vote. I'm going to bring it to vote. Who is against this amendment? Okay, so there is no space for this, but raise the card, please. We're going to count. We have to do it in a transparent way. Please raise the cards very. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
This is not a vote. There is no consensus. You have to certainly.
It's okay.
12.
It's okay. So it's obvious that there is no consensus, no? So thank you very much for this very interesting debate. And now we are going to the point 5.2, and we have to give the floor. In theory, we should give the floor to Monsieur Pascal Alizard, the person in charge of the Rules of Procedure Committee. I think he's chairing the last report. He's presenting the last report in the Senate this week. He could not attend. He will arrive tomorrow. And then I would like to give the floor to another member of the Rules of Procedures Committee, Mr. John Nightingale, who will present the report of the Rules Procedure Committee. Thank you very much for being here, John, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as you say, Pascal sent his apologies and has asked me to present his report to the Standing Committee. So I will read his report, which starts, Dear colleagues, our rules of procedure were last subject to amendment during our winter meeting in February this year, when the Standing Committee agreed to a practical change related to deadlines in advance of our annual session. I have been pleased to see this successfully implemented in our preparations for this annual session, and I hope that this has facilitated all of our work for this Assembly meeting. Earlier this year, I also reported on the subcommittee's efforts to implement the suggestion for a minimum contribution level by all countries to our budget. We spent significant time and effort to reach what we hoped was an appropriate balance, and I want to particularly thank the Treasurer for his support in this process. Following consultation with a wide range of delegations, however, it has become clear that there is not currently sufficient support to change the rules of procedure to implement this. Our communal efforts to improve the Assembly's financial situation will need to continue. Also related to financial matters, the Subcommittee on the Rules of Procedure has been asked to examine the appropriateness and status of our existing financial regulations originally endorsed by the Standing Committee in July 2017. After 10 years, I think it is entirely appropriate to evaluate this. In the days following our Standing Committee in The Hague, the Rules Committee will be convening to consider this and other matters. However, already in June, I convened a meeting with the representatives from the Assembly's largest donors for an initial discussion on any needs in this regard. We must be sure that our financial regulations and management meet the high expectations of all of our parliaments, and I'm confident that the Rules Committee's work will result in an even stronger process in the future. In addition to the above, since the Assembly last met in Porto, the Subcommittee has considered a wide range of matters brought to our attention. Our discussions have not always resulted in suggested amendments, but have included useful exchanges on topics including consideration of the term of office of General Committee officers, regulating the membership and work of ad hoc committees, regulating the appointments of special representatives, and the qualification process for supplementary items. I've been pleased with the breadth of topics we have addressed and want to express my appreciation for the dedicated manner in which the subcommittee members have examined these and other topics. We will continue our work to ensure that the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly's rules and regulations are appropriate to the times and the challenges facing our region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jon. I don't know if there is any comment, because I would like to link it. I would like to link this point with the point 5.3 that has been requested by the German delegation, by Tobias Winkler. If there is no any request to take the floor now, I would like to do this link. And, you know, as you said, that we could link it with the rules of procedure. If you don't mind, Tobias, you can take the floor and then you can explain this point 5.3 on the governance and oversight, accountability, etc., etc. So thank you very much for suggesting this point, and I give you the floor, Tobias.
Dear Mr. President, dear colleagues, so first of all, let me thank you for making it possible to include the item on the agenda of the Standing Committee. The OSCE Parliamentary Assembly finds itself at a critical moment. It's the world's largest regional security organization. Our core mission is to defend the Helsinki principles and, by doing so, to contribute to a rules-based international order. To fulfill that mission, the Parliamentary Assembly needs a structure that enables us to combine our strength, the strength of 323 parliamentarians from 57 participating states. In recent months, however, a number of decisions taken at the leadership level have not helped us to achieve that objective. One of the most serious credibility crises in the history of our assembly arose in connection with the election observation mission in Hungary. The consequences were far-reaching. The country's largest opposition party, which, after winning the election, now forms the government, even refused to meet with OSCE PA election observers ahead of the election. Our neutrality is our greatest asset. It is rooted in our exclusive commitment to the Helsinki principles, and it is the foundation of the trust on which this organization is built. That trust was shaken by an unfortunate personal decision, and our credibility suffered significantly as a consequence. I therefore welcome the fact that at the last Bureau meeting in Copenhagen, we had the opportunity to discuss this matter thoroughly and agreed on concrete measures to ensure that such a situation will not occur again. Another decision taken in recent months has also caused considerable concern. Following the military strikes by Israel and the United States against Iran's military program and leadership, the President convened a special meeting of the Bureau. During that discussion, there was a broad consensus that military action outside the OSCE area did not require a formal statement from our Assembly. At the same time, there was broad agreement that the attack on the military facility in Cyprus was unacceptable, and that in all our decisions we must carefully consider the consequences for our participating states. It is therefore very regrettable that this clear position of the Bureau was not reflected in the President's letter to the US delegation, which was sent only minutes after the meeting had concluded. As a result, the content of the letter does not reflect the position of the members of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. We already mentioned the communication about the visit to Georgia. I don't want to repeat. It is the responsibility of the elected leadership of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly to represent the positions adopted by the majority of its members. I expect the President to uphold those positions and, as the voice of 323 parliamentarians, to bring the political weight of this Assembly to bear wherever the principles to which we have all committed ourselves are threatened or violated. Of course, it is entirely legitimate to advocate one's own political views and to seek support for them within our organization. If those views command a majority, they become the basis for our common political action. But when we act externally in contradiction to the position agreed by the majority of this organization, we unnecessarily weaken ourselves. I want the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly to become an even stronger voice, an assembly that takes democratic decisions and represents them consistently and forcefully. An assembly that is financially sustainable, independent, neutral, and credible, and one that can thereby make a meaningful contribution to making our world a better place. Yes, mistakes have been made in recent months, but I also want to acknowledge that important processes have been launched to strengthen our organization. I welcome the work of the Rules of Procedure Committee, the Secretary General, the Treasurer, the Bureau and the President, who are working together on reforms to prevent similar mistakes in the future and to ensure that in increasingly turbulent times, this Assembly remains a steadfast anchor for democracy, dialogue and the Helsinki principles. Each of us can and must play our part in strengthening this organization. Dear colleagues, by approving the budget, we have already sent an important signal. I'm confident that we can send another strong signal by adopting the Hague Declaration, a declaration that will remain the lasting legacy to this annual session. Thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to present these remarks. I look forward to our discussions over the upcoming days here in The Hague, and I would like to conclude my expressing my sincere gratitude to our Dutch hosts for their warm hospitality and excellent organization. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Tobias, for your words, and I would like to give the floor to the colleague of Romania.
Thank you, Mr. President, dear colleagues. The President of our Assembly enjoys and has to have the confidence of the Standing Committee to work well, and has an important responsibility to represent the Parliamentary Assembly externally. In doing so, the President naturally exercises political judgment. At the same time, we should remember all that the President speaks not only in personal capacity, but on behalf of this Assembly. What is a challenge? Therefore, I think whenever public positions are taken in the name of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, as was the case of the stance on the Iranian issue, so particularly on sensitive international developments, they should reflect as far as possible the views and the broad consensus of this Assembly and the Bureau and the Standing Committee. Our diversity should be our greatest strength, but preserving the confidence of all delegations requires that the institutional voice of the Assembly, the President, be one that represents the majority of its members rather than any individual political perspective, even if it comes from the President. So I offer this observation in a constructive spirit, Mr. President, with the aim of strengthening their credibility and the unity of our Assembly. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. I think there are no other requests for taking the floor, so as we are, Carina from Sweden. Carina Odebrink from Sweden, sorry.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. I do not intend to revisit the extensive discussion we had in the Bureau following the election observation mission to Hungary. We have already had that debate. Instead, I want to focus on the way forward. We are not here for ourselves. We are here because our national parliaments have placed their trust in us. Our foremost responsibility is, therefore, to do everything we can to strengthen the organization we have the privilege to serve and represent. No organization is immune from mistakes. What matters is not whether mistakes occur, but whether we learn from them and ensure they are not repeated. Our most important asset is the trust and credibility of this Assembly. That trust must be protected in everything we do, including the deployment of staff and the conduct of our election observation missions. I know that the events in Hungary have prompted reflection and important lessons. I welcome that, and I would therefore appreciate if the Secretary General could outline the concrete steps that have been taken since then and how these lessons will strengthen our procedures and our work for the future. And President, I also want to say the following. We are a parliamentary institution, and our duty is to put forward our respective different political minds and opinions and proposals. We are not an assembly of like-minded, rather the opposite, and sometimes very much the opposite. But we see the need of meeting and having a dialogue when it comes to difficult political questions where we have different opinions. And therefore, I am deeply regretting and I'm sorry that we remove supplementary items from debate and from making decisions on. We can't pick and choose which some countries to criticize, but not criticize others, because our duty and our first and foremost mission is to have a political debate and to take a vote on that, because if we do not, I think we are to pity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Karina, and Christine Blower from the UK delegation has the floor.
Thank you very much, President. I'm delighted that I managed to be a part of two of the items that are perhaps a little contentious as they've been raised today, the Hungarian election observation mission and also the mission to Georgia. I want to say, first of all, that I thought the mission to Georgia actually, for the most part, brought great credit to the OSCPA, because we were in a position to meet a number of people who earlier in the political cycle had not been keen to meet us at all. It is deeply regrettable that we were not able to meet prisoners, and we had certainly gone on the mission on the basis that we expected that we would have been able to. However, both myself and other members of the delegation, and primarily the President, made the position of the OSCPA very clear very robustly in a lot of meetings. And in the end, I think it was definitely worth doing, particularly, as the President said, it had been 6 months in the planning before we actually went there. With regard to Hungary, I would also be very pleased to hear from the Secretary General about any changes of arrangements that might be made going forward. But again, given the outcome of the election, I think, and given the high level of participation in the election observation mission, we should be pleased that we took that mission and that we were able to be there to see a very satisfactory outcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to give the floor to Bulgaria and then to Georgia. And just to let you know that there is still the report of the Secretary General, and I have to give a couple of important information before we end. So please, please, please, because at 10:30 we have a lot of side events starting, so be brief. I know that you all want to speak, but be brief, please.
Mr. President, dear colleagues, thank you very much for the opportunity. I was going to raise a point for other business, so I'm more than happy for us to carry on discussing points 6 and 7, and when we come to point 8, I would ask for the word,
Okay,
please.
thank you very much. So the floor is for the delegation of Georgia.
Thank you very much. Well, since the mission to Georgia was mentioned several times, I take the liberty to also voice my opinion. The mission to Georgia was very successful from our point of view, because the delegation had the chance to meet everyone, including the government side as well as the opposition, and they got to know the first-hand information on the ground. Therefore, I think this was an important mission that also elevated the role of the OSCPA in Georgia, which I remind you is a partially occupied country from the Russian Federation. And I want to reply also to the U.S. representative who said that I represent the Kremlin's interest. Obviously, these are the groundless accusations that I would like to reject, and also to to show some respect to personal issues, the photo that you mentioned and all the groundless accusations that you've had, I was on the photo with Mr. President and the Secretary General for the press conference. So I would urge everyone for restraint. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, dear colleague. Next point on the agenda, report of the Secretary General of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, Mr. Roberto Montella. I will now give the floor to Secretary General for his report.
Thank you very much. I would have said Mr. President, but Mr. Vice President for giving me the floor. Well, thank you very much to all of you participating in the Hague. Welcome here. I'd like to thank first and foremost Farah Karimi and the Dutch delegation for hosting us here. It's been a great endeavor since we started to develop this project, but I can see the final outcome is excellent, and I look forward also to the other part of the sessions and the events that you've organized in these evenings. So thank you very much for all the work that has been put here by you personally, Farah, but all the team and all the people who work behind the scenes. Also to Senator Roger Wicker and to Mark Weezy and the entire US delegation, happy 4th of July. Thank you very much for being here. It's very important for us that you are here, also on this day. I know you should have been in your constituencies, but it's very important the message that you send by being present in this assembly, especially after a year where unfortunately you couldn't participate in some meetings. So I really express my personal gratitude for you. I would have said to this president, but it will relay to the president. Thank you very much to President Pons for his leadership. And I think from Porto to the Hague has been a very successful year, I think. A very successful year in terms of political aspects, in terms of finance and administration. Politically, I think we have managed to keep a very strong focus on Ukraine. I think our position on Ukraine are unwavering. I think that we have, ever since 2014, when Senator Cardin and the US delegation promoted a supplementary items calling for clear, gross, uncorrected violation of the Helsinki Final Act by naming the country who made that aggression, the Russian Federation. I think we have been very, very firm and very, very central in the political debate on Ukraine. This has been proved also by the recent recognition that President Zelensky gave to our president, but to our assembly, the Medal of Honor for the work that we've done in Ukraine. We've been several times there with some of you. We've been very active. The president met twice Zelensky recently. Today afternoon, we will also have an address by President Zelensky online. So I think on the most, let's say, important political issue of the OSCE region, the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly has been very present, and I think I'm very proud of this work that we've done. I also would like to thank the President for appointing Karina over to the dossier of returning children. I think that we have paid attention also to specific aspects, the returning of children. Thank you, Karina, also for the work that you've done on this and for all the trip that you've undertaken in order to deal with this issue. And also to Dietrich Borch from the Dutch delegation. The President has appointed a special person to deal with 3 OSCE employees. They are our colleagues, we are OSCE employees, Dima, Vadim, and the other one. But these 3 OSCE employees, anyway, they have been detained by the Russian Federation for many years, so I thank the work that has been done to look into their situation. Mr. President, you've also kept this assembly very busy on Central Asia. I think our regional outreach is very important. We've been to Kazakhstan on issues of climate change, met with the President of Kazakhstan, who, by the way, is a former Vice President of our assembly, President Tokayev. I think that the work of our special representatives also in the region shows that our focus on regions brings the assembly to the center of places where the OSCE should be. In the region, there are OSCE missions that work, so the presence of the OSCE also in supporting the work of the missions is very important. We've been present in the Caucasus, both with the visit that has been mentioned to Georgia, but also with a very important election observation mission recently in Armenia. In Southeast Europe, a region where OSCE is very present with the OSCE missions, Our president has been there leading a delegation, especially to Bosnia-Herzegovina. We went to make an historical visit to Srebrenica. I was very impressed also by a sign that there is at the entrance of Srebrenica that says the shame of the international community. I think that for someone like me who has worked for 30 years in international organizations, the reminder that also those who do this job in international business like us should always have in mind that we have to keep our dignity very high, and what we do does matter. On election observation missions, Mr. President, this has been a record year. I mean, the number of participants that comes with election observations is always now almost above 100. We only had these figures in the past in one mission in Ukraine and normally in the USA, but now almost every mission goes above 100 participants. So the mission in Ukraine, the mission in Hungary and Armenia were record high, and I thank also our election department for managing the deployment of so many parliamentarians. But first and foremost, I thank you for participating, dedicating time to these activities. Very important, your time. Mr. President, also you've had a strong focus on gender policies. You've made balanced appointments, both on election observations and on special representatives. And I think besides promoting gender policies, you also practiced it. So this is something that we should all take good example from. Also, you have had an important focus on plurality. We've seen the statistics that you've distributed. You can see from the statistics that are in your folders, there are many countries who have never had elected officials or never had leaders of election observation missions or being appointed to position of special representatives, while there are a few who have a strong concentration of mandates. So I think your idea, Mr. President, to enlarge and make sure that everyone, at least everyone in this composition, now we were talking today about other countries but, or other organizations, but at least within the 57 participating states to enlarge also the responsibilities, this is something that you should be commended for. So this on the political side, I said this was a very successful year. On the financial aspects, I think the news I have here is that 17 parliaments have decided independently to increase their contribution this year. Noting the financial realities that are hampering our work, a number of delegations have voluntarily committed extra budgetary contribution to support our work. Luxembourg parliaments, a significant extra budgetary support, has enabled enhanced engagement in Southeastern Europe. I thank them as well as Switzerland and Norway for their additional extra budgetary support, and Estonia, Iceland, Latvia, Liechtenstein, Lithuania, and San Marino for voluntarily increasing their contribution to Euro 10,000 level, as well as Montenegro's commitment to additional funding for the School Dialogues Initiative. Of course, the Danish Parliament, which continues to be, in practical terms, as our host, the largest single contributor to the OSCPA's resources, and I reiterate our thanks for their continued support. Similarly, the Austrian government's support for our Vienna office, as well as Germany and Italy, support through secondments that are a major contribution to our collective work. So thank you very much to these 17 parliaments who have demonstrated their commitment to the OSCPA by increasing their contributions. Also, I would like to thank 5 parliaments who have decided to host our upcoming meetings, and here Andorra, which will host our autumn meeting this year, as well as Serbia, Albania, and we'll soon hear also from the United States. There are some ideas, but I don't want to prevent the debate. But this is also a way to contribute to our finances by hosting events and contributing in hosting conferences. We do have one challenge in the finances, and you've all heard the report of our treasurer, and that's that one delegation, namely the Russian Federation, has not paid the contribution. I'd say luckily and smartly, to say to Gustavo and to those who have preceded me in this job, we have managed throughout the years to build reserves. So we've managed to build reserves that have allowed us to continue the activities. And Mr. President, I would like to also reiterate that you did say that the question of financial resources is fundamentally a political one. Investing in the assembly means investing in security through dialogue rather than weapons. Our resources must therefore reflect our ambitions, you say in your report. In response to this exceptional situation, the Secretariat has ensured continuity through cuts to administrative costs and measured use of reserves as authorized by the political leadership. So while the Secretariat has exercised strict discipline over costs and delivery, but this should be understood as an adjustment, not as a path, but that we choose for the future. And I totally agree with you, Mr. President, that we cannot continue like this. The good news is that notwithstanding the missing contribution of 1 million euro, so the Russians have not paid 1 million euro, 1,093,000. So for 4 years, 250 is their contribution. So we have not received 1 million. We have withdrawn from the reserve only 500,000. So we did not receive 1 million. We have withdrawn from the reserves only 500,000. The rest, the other 500,000, has been financed with cuts, savings, and extra budget contributions. So this is, let's say, it's obviously not a permanent solution. We have to have a longer-term plan. But I think we have managed very well. So with a shortfall of 1 million, we've only taken 500,000 from the reserves, as, of course, it's ascertained by the auditor's report that was presented. Now, for the future, the treasurer that President Johan said, we cannot allow the Russian decision to interfere in the work of the Assembly for next year. The Assembly should not allow a single delegation to financially blackmail the organization and use funding as a political tool to bring disorder within the OSCPA. When Russia doesn't pay their annual dues to the Assembly this year, the President and I have authorized the Secretary General, and this is how it is, obviously. Of course, I commit to only the President and the Treasurer, authorizing the Secretary General to finance some of the expenditures from the emergency reserves. And if the situation doesn't change in the next financial year, we will have to finance some of our expenditures from the emergency reserves once again. This is what the Treasurer suggested in the past. But I think now we have arrived to a point where we cannot continue like this. And of course, we have to find some solutions. And of course, by Andorra or by Vienna, I will also bring up some suggestions as it was requested here today. When I would look into suggestions, I mean, this is, of course, for the political leadership to decide on where you want to look into. But if you see a little bit what you mentioned today, the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, also what the EU, I mean, the policy has been, let's become, on the EU, we said we have to become energetically independent from Russia, so that we don't depend on Russian energy, so we beef up our energy and find alternative resources. I think also the NATO PA obviously is not made by Russia because they don't finance that budget, but they've increased by 10%, as you said, Mr. President. So I think we have to find a way so that we cannot be blackmailed, as the Treasurer said, by one participating state not paying its dues. Third point on administration, Mr. President. I'm very proud of the team that we have both in Copenhagen and Vienna. We are 25 professionals, 2 elected officials, 23 staff, totally gender balanced, who have delivered on so many activities. I think since 2023, it was mentioned also about greater transparency, we have, besides receiving always a positive audit from the financial point of view, in 2023, we felt the necessity to also have an audit also on the performance of the Secretariat. I agree with some of you that said, well, the performance of the Secretariat is discussed by the members because you are the, let's say, the customers of the work of the Secretariat. You are the ones who can tell whether our election observation, our meetings are professional, delivering on what you're expecting. But we asked also an external audit to do an ad hoc performance audit for the last 3 years, and I take note of Norway, who suggested that we should continue to do it also for the next year. We will certainly do that. And they were asked to monitor the adequacy and effectiveness of the International Secretariat processes, benchmarking remuneration and benefits against market data for staff, compare remuneration against relevant public indexes, evaluate tax rules. I have 3 minutes. Okay, I will finish. Evaluate the management ability to budget and follow up on discrepancies, as well as assessing if current funding is adequate to fulfill assembly goals and cost savings, procurement practices. So this is the terms of reference that the auditor were given 3 years ago. They've done 3 audits in a row, and they have come up with a positive outcome, both on the financial and on the administrative audit. So for this, I'm very proud. I'm very proud of the fact that the Secretariat has delivered so well. And I conclude, Mr. President, by thanking all the members for your participation in all our meetings, and the staff and my colleagues, led by Gustavo, and the team in Vienna for delivering on all these tasks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. I don't know if there is anybody who wants to take the floor. Sweden first, Azerbaijan. Don't forget that at 12:30 we have to end. I have to share some information. Please be very brief.
Thank you, Mr. President, and dear colleagues and dear Secretary General. I want to thank you for this comprehensive report and take the opportunity to address an important matter for making the political process with political documents more secure and as well as efficient. We have all once again worked extensively with the writing, as well as giving support for supplementary items, as well as amendments ahead of this year's annual session. The methods of our assembly are, mildly expressed, quite old-fashioned when it comes to the delegate support for the political proposals. Other organizations, such as the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, are fully digitalized in this field. I would like to propose to the Standing Committee that the Secretary General and the Working Group on Rules of Procedure initiate a modernization of the process with political documents so that we are up to date with other organizations. This will strengthen us and make us more efficient. I want to ask the Secretary General, as well as the Chair, or in this case today, the representative of the Working Group of Rules of Procedure, if such system can be tabled for decision at the winter meeting next year. I would also like to hear comments on these proposals from other representatives of the Standing Committee. Dear all, let us build an organization that embraces current technology moving forward so that we can engage with politics instead of old-fashioned working methods. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will give the floor briefly to Azai, I think, and to Karina Odebrink.
Yes, dear President, I will be very brief. The reason that I asked for the floor is that, first of all, to support the report of Secretary General. Thank you very much, dear Roberto. I know that how Secretariat is working hard, and I remember the time when it was so difficult even to organize some events. I'm talking about back maybe at the early of 2005 or others. But today, of course, with less money, with less opportunities, you are doing more. So it should be appreciated. First of all, I want to say this. Second, about the transparency. I think you have done many things to provide the transparent and the accountable system of management. It is also needs to be appreciated. And the fact that today we are facing some challenges, of course, it is a fact, it is a reality, but you have to adapt to the new challenges you have already mentioned in your report. I think the Standing Committee and the other members have to support these efforts that your team and your person are going to implement. Thank you very much, dear Secretary General.
Karina has the floor, and then Germany, Finland, and Italy, and we close, because I have to give you some information.
Thank you so much. And I forgot in my previous speech, I would like to thank Farah Karimi and the Netherlands for hosting us here, because it's an excellent meeting, and thank you very much for that. I am, I think, a positive and constructive person. Maybe some of you don't think I am, but that's how I function. And I just want to comment on the budget and financial situation, because we've just voted on the budget with the 3 important preconditions. And what I hear now from the Secretary General when it comes to the long-term sustainability on financial and budget issues, I don't know if I misunderstood, but the solutions, in my opinion, cannot be to soften up our relations with Russia to make them pay. And I would like to be very clear on that, because I think that's important. I don't know if Groucho Marx said, if you don't like my principles, I have others. I don't have any other principles. That's my principle. We can't soften up the relations with Russia in this time. I think that's important. And finally, yes, I also would like to say to the Secretary General, thank you very much for your warm words about my work as Special Envoy for the Ukrainian deported children. I really appreciate that. My last question is, maybe I missed it, Secretary General, but I had a question about how do we move forward when it comes to election observation missions, so that we can learn from the previous ones and that we can be a better organization for the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karina. Tobias. Tobias has the...
Thank you, Mr. President. Now Farah Karimi is back in the room. I hope, Farah, you didn't miss the warm words from Karina, and I fully underline them. So I didn't want to repeat because I thought the Secretary General would answer. I had 2 questions, or I had 3 questions before. Now one is obsolete. The agreement with the Treasurer on not taking out money of the reserves this time was an agreement he said, and the other one, the action plan to restore the reserves. What is your understanding of this agreement, Secretary General? And the third one was zero nominal growth. If the budget would not have been adopted, this is obsolete now, but on 1 and 2 about the reserves, I would have had, or would like to have a clear answer.
So now, thank you, Tobias. Finland has the floor, and then we'll close with Italy, Secretary General, and then I will give you a bit of information.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to support very quickly Sweden's proposal and idea of using technology to make this organization more efficient and get things running even smoother. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I totally agree as well. Italy, Eugenio Zoffili.
Grazie. Grazie Presidente, Segretario Generale, colleghi. Io desidero esprimere con chiarezza la mia piena fiducia nel Segretariato internazionale e nel suo operato. Avrei voluto intervenire anche nelle discussioni precedenti, ma ho lasciato questo intervento per questo momento conclusivo. Nel corso degli ultimi anni l'Assemblea ha beneficiato di una gestione amministrativa e finanziaria, a nostro avviso, oculata ed efficiente. Questo, come è stato detto, è stato attestato non una ma 4 volte anche da Deloitte, e mi risulta che non siano stati segnalati problemi significativi di trasparenza, irregolarità di alcuna sorta. Esiste al contrario, colleghi, un segretariato che ha lavorato con serietà, dedizione e professionalità in circostanze sempre più difficili e con risorse sempre più limitati. E credo che rispetto alle questioni amministrative di cui, Presidente, abbiamo parlato veramente tanto anche nel corso del Bureau di Copenaghen, sia il momento di voltare pagina e di concentrarci su delle questioni che contano veramente e che credo che siano, e ne sono convinto, prioritarie. Dobbiamo fare ancor più politica, dobbiamo impegnarci tutti per promuovere ancora di più la nostra Assemblea parlamentare dell'OSCE a livello internazionale, un'assemblea che sta attraversando una fase storica delicata, la crisi del multilateralismo, l'instabilità geopolitica, le pressioni finanziarie crescenti. Serve, Presidente, capitale politico, serve che i grandi paesi contributori con la loro autorevolezza, il loro peso politico, rilancino la credibilità, e serve che chi contribuisce meno si impegni a contribuire e ad aumentare l'impegno finanziario rispetto all'organizzazione, rispetto all'OSCE, anche attraverso l'organizzazione di eventi e di iniziative. Noi come Italia ci stiamo mettendo il massimo impegno, tutto il nostro cuore, anche la conferenza di Roma ne è la testimonianza. Serve, dove siamo stati anche accolti in udienza privata dal Santo Padre in Vaticano, serve un segretariato internazionale professionale, competente e all'altezza di una situazione così complessa. Segretariato, Presidente, che abbiamo ben rappresentato dal segretario generale Montella e da tutto lo staff e da tutto il team. E ha queste caratteristiche, lo dico da Anna, passando da Anna, da Aria, da Marco, Anastasia, da Manu, e non sto a elencare tutti i componenti che con grande professionalità lavorano per il nostro segretariato. Serve infine, Presidente, il coraggio di evitare faide intestine inutili e controproducenti e di pensare invece all'interesse comune dell'organizzazione, quello dei nostri cittadini che guardano a questa assemblea come un luogo in cui la diplomazia parlamentare può ancora fare la differenza. L'Italia ha fatto ed è pronta con il massimo impegno, con la sua delegazione, a fare questa parte. Vi ringrazio e mi scuso se mi sono dilungato, Presidente, ma ci tenevo veramente.
Grazie Eugenio per queste parole. Vi ringrazio anche a tutta la delegazione italiana per il vostro impegno e anche per il lavoro che abbiamo fatto per la visita al Santo Padre. Allora grazie mille per questo speech e do la parola per finire al segretario generale brevemente.
Thank you, Mr. President. Grazie mille, caro Eugenio, per le belle parole. And thank you very much to everyone who has intervened and has made comments. There are three specific questions. One on this electronic system. We have actually looked into that. We are still looking into it. It will be at some point presented to you as part of the action plan, but there is a substantial financial cost linked to it, and not only on una tantum, let's say, not only one investment, but also maintenance and transportation of equipment. So we have to look into that, but we will follow up on that request and kind of make a proposal, and then we have to assess, you know, like, do we want to make an investment or not? But I think we all agree. I mean, also this, we need to find a more professional system to do it. And there are systems which are integrated, which can produce minutes, can produce, I mean, there are some ideas, technologies, of course, vast on this domain. So it's just a question of costs, and we'll have to look into that. Some questions were about this, I don't know what to call it, agreement paper that me and the Treasurer have signed in Stockholm as a precondition for the approval of the budget. I mean, I just wanted to be clear, you know, like, of course, I have signed onto a piece of paper which is nothing more than what is already contained in the rule. Our rule says you can only withdraw from the reserves with the approval of the President and the Treasurer. So I've signed onto something that is already in the rule. I would have challenged anyone to not to sign that. So of course it says it's in the rule. There is the other thing is if there is the budget is not approved, then we will use the budget of last year. So zero nominal growth. This is one of the rules of procedure. So it's contained in our rule. So 2 out of these 3 things that I have signed up to are just a confirmation of the rules, obviously. I will sign up all the time to respect the rules of procedures. The third point was an action plan on how in the long term resolve the situation. As you said, Mr. President, in your report, this is more a political, I mean, you have to decide politically what you want to do with these questions. The Secretariat has exhausted what it can do administratively by cuts, by being very, we said 1 million was not received, we only spent 500,000, so we've really managed to finance 50% of this shortfall with our good management, and I think Gustav was very austere, let's say, way of dispersing. Gustavo is the one who authorizes payments, so it's been very difficult sometimes to even get someone to visit you in Paris, Mr. President, from Gustavo. So we have exercised maximum restraint at the Secretariat, but this is you know, like as much as we can from our side. But I think the action, I think a embryon of an action plan was contained in the first draft budget that we proposed. We've had 11 draft budgets proposed to the Treasurer. In the first draft budget, we had an idea of how to overcome this, but we have then decided, I mean, the political leadership decides what is the final budget, so the solution was a little bit less than what you had proposed. But I will definitely come up with a plan, as I don't know if by Andorra, anyway, it will be implemented from April, this plan, because it has to go in the next budget. So be it in Andorra or in Vienna, I will come up with a comprehensive plan on how to come out of this financial crisis. And the third point was about the Hungary mission. I think the Bureau has dealt with this situation, and sometimes I'm a little bit uneasy to discuss personnel matters in, you know, on a webcast thing. And so I'll just say the minimal, because I mean the Bureau already heard this. I mean, but the Bureau met in April in Copenhagen and agreed that the staff in question was beyond reproach, and that the organization should do everything possible to protect this person. For those who are new, I will also remind that the 2023 Bureau in Copenhagen, and also an ad hoc session at the Vancouver July annual session led by Ben Cardin and Richard Hudson, dealt with all these allegations. They were examined, dismissed on multiple occasions through proper institutional processes. So going forward, because the question was what would I do, as Secretary General, I will exercise sound and cautious judgment, and where there is genuine risk that a staff member's presence could be exploited or instrumentalized in a way that would harm the mission, harm the institution, or harm the individual, I will take that into account in the deployment decision. That is a common sense, as was discussed in Copenhagen, and it's part of my responsibility. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. Thank you very much, Roberto. Just, he did not mention it, but I would like to mention it, that I would like to thank you, the Secretariat, for adopting, for distributing an anti sexual harassment policy in this organization. I think it's important. Please read it. Read it. It's on the basis of the IPU also framework. And I would like to thank you for this work. And let me give you very important information, just one sec. Autumn meeting, Andorra, 7-9th of October. Bureau meeting, December 2 in Lugano, in Switzerland, prior to the Ministerial Council. Winter meeting, 18-19 February 2027. And then we have received offers from United States, Serbia, and others, and I would like to ask you if you want to take the floor. One of the delegation of the USA first, then Serbia, and anybody else? Albania is
Mr. President, I had a point of order.
I would like to end first. Mr. Wicker, go ahead.
Mr. President, thank you very much. First of all, let me thank the President and the Secretary General and all members of the Secretariat for their preparation of this annual session and for the transparency and sound management under the Secretary General. Now, as far as the summer meeting next year, as you know, there had been a great desire on behalf of the United States to host next year. I have a letter here from a member of the Bureau, one of our Vice Presidents, Richard Hudson, who will not be able to be with us today, but he makes it clear that as a member of the leadership of the House of Representatives, we simply do not have assurance from our leadership because of our budget cycle that the House and Senate of the United States will be able to provide timely funding to host next year in 2027. So this comes as a disappointment to our delegation. Nevertheless, the United States, as a host for future meetings, must come at a later year, and we announce that and apologize for any disappointment that there might be. But at some point, we'll be in a position to host. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wicker. This is regrettable. So I would like to give the floor to Serbia and then to Albania.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I am saddened because I was looking forward to Charleston, South Carolina, which I heard only the best things about, and I do hope that our friends from the US will be able to host some of the upcoming meetings. However, as I have said before, Serbia stands ready to jump in for 2027, and I am sure that one of the following years we'll be able to come to US of A, but for the next year, Belgrade stands ready to host. Thank you.
I would like to give the floor to Albania.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also on behalf of the Albanian delegation and for sure even on behalf of the Albanian Parliament, I want to invite you to make the coming session, so the autumn session in Albania for 2027. The Parliament of Albania is fully committed to work closely with you and the International Secretariat to ensure the successful organization of autumn session 2027 in Tirana. So it's a big pleasure for us inviting you and also a show that Albania is ready to fulfill all the requirements for organizing a very successful and interesting meeting in Tirana. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this good news. I think, if you don't mind, there is a point of order and any other business. I don't know if you want to raise the point. Karina, it must be a procedural point.
Yeah.
Because it's very late.
Very
we are
brief,
really
yeah.
running out of time.
Sorry, dear President. I would like to thank the Secretary General for the answer when it comes to the election observation missions forward. My ambition was not to discuss personal issues. It's about the principles and the way forward. I just want to underline that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karina. And I would like to give the floor to the delegation of Bulgaria for any other business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, I do appreciate we've run out of time, so I'll be quick. I just wanted to provide small feedback on the way that the voting was carried out. At first, when we voted the supplementary items, we were allowed to vote with 4 against and abstained. Throughout the session, we then voted on the budget and the Turkpa organization becoming part of the OCPA, and we were then only given the option to vote for and against. That vote in particular obviously has put my country into a situation where it turns out we voted for, and our intention was to vote as abstained. So this is just a small feedback. I believe it will be taken with the positive intention. If a second suggestion, if I may, is if we are going to allow for organizations to join us, it might be a good suggestion for us to charge them with a fee. I think that will support our budget. This is just a consideration. Thank you very much.
It's a good idea. It's always all ideas to increase the budget they are always welcome. But I would like to give the floor to the procedural advisor to answer the question.
Andreas. Thank you. Sorry not to extend this, but just on the question of the procedures, it's slightly different processes depending upon the decision. So the standing committee generally votes by consensus -1, which is not really a vote. It's basically, are there objections? So it's not a vote in the standard way that we usually have in Parliament. So that's the distinction. In some cases, with a 2/3 majority vote, then it's a regular vote. Consensus is the chair has to understand, does anybody object? It's not a vote in the standard process. So it's simply the procedural difference.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. It may be worth it just to mention that before the start of the vote, just so people like me who have come to this meeting for the first time know what they should be expecting.
Thank you very much. Even for me, it's a new experience every time that we vote. So thank you again to the delegation of the Netherlands. Thank you all for all the intervention. I still think that Eugenio Sofeli wants to raise the point, but it's extremely late, Eugenio. Five seconds.
Grazie Presidente. Io volevo confermare la disponibilità dell'Italia per l'organizzazione della terza conferenza sulla lotta alla criminalità organizzata e anche a disponibilità per fare delle valutazioni rispetto alla sessione annuale o ad altre conferenze. Ma tutto ciò dipende, la scadenza del mandato in Italia della legislatura cade nel 2027, tutto ciò dipende dalla data del voto e quindi lasciamo questa discussione aperta e siamo assolutamente disponibili a fare delle valutazioni insieme sul fatto di organizzare iniziative in Italia.
Okay.
Grazie, scusi.
Grazie Eugenio, cerchiamo consenso. Grazie, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure, and now side events and lunch.